Hello, everybody. It has been one full year in the final, we hope, Trump administration. It's supposed to be the final administration, but, you know, who knows what's going to happen. January 20th, 2025, we were here or around then we were here. And I'm, like what got him elected? Well, they were eating the cats and they were eating the dogs. And we don't hear any more about them eating the cats or the dogs. Um, there's quite a bit on immigration, and that's turned into a mess. There were some concerns about affordability, which he then, thought was a new word invented by Democrats as part of a Democratic hoax. And there was that promise to release the Epstein files, and that he didn't have anything to do with Project 2025. Never even read it. So he gave an address the other day talking about what he has done. Of course, he only picked the things that he thinks he's done well, which is everything, except he didn't have time to get to everything. And so he claimed that everybody said that his tariffs were going to cause inflation, but they didn't. Well, to be fair, when you constantly back down from your tariffs and don't allow them to continue to build, they're not going to have as much of an impact on the economy as people were worried about. You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to raise tariffs to 90% or take drug prices down 15 million percent," and then back down from all that. On the whole, prices are still increasing. Inflation is slightly down. It was 3% a year ago. It's 2.7% now. On things like groceries, housing, clothing, healthcare, it really hasn't dropped or changed much. Some grocery prices are up. Others have decreased, like eggs. But also there's been repackaging and price manipulation. And of course, when you have big big conglomerate corporations, it's really easy to say, okay, we'll lower the price on eggs and raise it on cheese. Electricity costs have increased nearly 7%, while gas prices have gone down, but not nearly as much as he's going to claim. On the whole, inflation remains largely unchanged. And that's been the case since he left office the first time, except for the massive spike when the supply chains were hit during and as we found our way out of COVID. Markets have been erratic. Everything has been erratic. Whether or not you have civil liberties, whether or not you're going to get due process, whether or not people can just walk up and ask you where you're born, and then based on whether or not you have an accent when you answer, they could just scoop you up. All of that's erratic. The consumer impression of the market is nearing all-time lows. And yet, I will say that currently wages are still outpacing inflation, and that's a good thing. I don't know what specifically to credit, but then I'm an economic idiot. So there's probably lots more to that I don't know or understand. And I can't keep up with, because not only do I not have an expertise in most of these things, but there's so much going on, this kind of flood the zone mentality that they're exercising. He said they were focused on deporting criminals, focused on murderers and drug dealers, but they've deported somewhere between 300,000 and 600,000 people that they don't publish data on. Of the 70,000 that are in detention now or near this time, nearly 75% of them have no criminal convictions. You can't just go with criminal accusations. You can't just say, "Oh, they're here illegally. That's criminal enough." No, you have to go through due process and show you have the right person. They have committed some crime. They've been convicted of something. They have violated whatever agreement it is. It's not merely an accusation that gets your stay here turned into a violation of the law. There has to be due process. He claims they secured $18 trillion in commitments for new investments. Maybe they have. The reports originally showed it was closer to 9.6. But it's really easy to get commitments for new investments when you're cutting tax breaks for people, and you don't know when or if they're ever going to come to fruition. He claimed that gasoline is at $1.99 in many states. That's a lie. Well, kind of a lie. You see, the average price nationally is about $2.78, which is down from the $3.11 that it was last January. Why isn't it good enough to just say, hey, gas prices are down? They're not down a lot, but they've come down from 311 to 278. Why do you have to then lie? Why does everything have to be an exaggeration? As it turns out, no state has seen an average price below $2, and the lowest average price was $2.34. There were 4 states that had more than 7 gas stations in the entire state selling gas at below $2. But a handful of stations is more likely to reflect publicity than performance of the economy. He claimed that 1 out of every 4 jobs added was a government job, which is really weird to me, considering these are the people who are trying to advocate for small government. Why would it be a good thing to say 25% of the jobs we added were in government? But it turns out, I don't know why they look at that as a positive. You might ask how many of them were ICE jobs and what happened to all the government waste and job reduction that Elon and everybody else was doing at the beginning of the year. But it turns out his 1 out of 4 isn't even accurate. Speaking of 1 out of 4, that's how many jobs he created in his first year, 1/4 of the jobs that Biden created. In last year of Biden's term in office, he added 2 million jobs. Trump has added 473,000 in 1 year. He said that 300,000 people died in the last year from fentanyl overdose because that's his new boogeyman in order to justify a lot of what he's doing. But the CDC and other organizations report that from August 24th through August 25th, 69,000 people died from all types of drug overdose. So in that 1 year time frame, 69,000 people died from all types of drug overdoses. And yet Trump is claiming that in the last year, 300,000 people died from fentanyl overdoses. Clearly, that's not true. He says he ended 8 unendable wars and that no president before him has ever settled even one. Well, there's at least 2 presidents that clearly did, both Carter and Roosevelt directly did so, and many others have signed peace accords and conducted the negotiations that went well beyond anything Trump did. And the individual wars that he supposedly ended are dubious at best. Here's an ongoing disagreement. We'll get a little ceasefire going, and then hostilities will pick back up. Meanwhile, Gaza, Ukraine, and more continue on. The things he was going to fix on day 1. He's the only one that can do it. It's really easy. He's going to do it day 1. Nope, still going. 1 year later, not even year 1. Couldn't even do it in year 1. What has he done that he didn't talk about too much in his address? Well, he attacked, I'm going to put it in air quotes, drug boats that couldn't have been a threat to the United States, that were never afforded any due process, that weren't shown to contain any drugs. And he did all that until he stole the oil from Venezuela, kidnapped a foreign leader from Venezuela. And then curiously, we don't hear anything else about drug boats, really. He mobilized the Justice Department to attack his political enemies. He hired and poorly trained unqualified Proud Boys as ICE agents who are currently violating due process and capturing, murdering, and deporting people, including U.S. citizens. His administration is actively in violation of a bipartisan law that he signed requiring the release of the Epstein files a month ago, a deadline that they missed and have made no further progress on, although they're currently trying to claim and get legal backing to say that they're not actually legally required to do anything. That something about the way this law signed by the president is written doesn't actually require them to do anymore. He spent serious time threatening on behalf of his goal to buy or seize Greenland, which he repeatedly called Iceland during a speech the other day, and his minister of propaganda tried to spin it as, well, Greenland is an icy land. I kid you not. Go watch. It's fun. He's threatened using the Insurrection Act in Minnesota and elsewhere. He's got his Gestapo, ICE, in the states that failed to vote for him. Minnesota isn't exactly a stronghold of immigration issues, and yet there are more ICE agents there than police in Minneapolis, I'm told. He's issued 228 executive orders. That's more than that's in the first year. That is more than his entire first term. And it is 66 executive orders more than Biden's entire 4-year term. This has resulted in hundreds of lawsuits, and we don't know when they're going to be addressed or ruled on, but when they are, they will be appealed. And then who knows what or when or how long it's going to take before that gets resolved. He's trying to fire the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. A year ago, we had Elon Musk running Doge. What did they do? Is there any oversight at all into what they did? And don't get me wrong, I could have done and have done an opening on the feckless Democrats as well. I actually called Chuck Schumer's office and left a nice message for him that he needs to get the fuck out of the way and let people do stuff because they're killing us and destroying the country. How much money did Elon Musk and them save? We don't know. Did they save any? Probably not. Did they cost us some? Did they fire people? There were tons of firing. We added what, if you believed his job numbers, we added so many government jobs, and yet we were reducing government jobs, making government smaller. How much data did Elon's goons potentially steal? I don't know. This year, millions of Americans lost their healthcare subsidies, like me. We waited until just after the renewal period so that you'd be locked in, so that even if they fix it, they're not going to adjust the price. My personal health insurance monthly jumped almost 60%. I went from it's almost 50%. I went from nearly $1,100 a month that I pay out of pocket to almost $1,600 a month that I pay out of pocket. So it was almost 50% that mine went up. And that's just for me. That's not for me and Arden. That's not for me and Arden and pets. That's not for any kids. That's just me. And I don't have it anywhere near as bad as some people do. He will very likely get to replace Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and there are 3 other justices all over 70. I can't keep up with all of it, and neither can anyone else. Citizens of the United States live in fear and anger. Markets are unstable. Our alliances with other nations are unstable. Decent people seem to be in a constant state of apology about what's happened. And if other nations have to stand up to fix the problem that we created, I hope they are kind in how they treat the citizens of the United States. He's definitely pissed off that he didn't get a Nobel Prize, although the person who did get the Nobel Peace Prize gave him hers. I've seen medical doctors suggesting he only has a couple months to live. There are concerns about his health issues. I don't put any stock in this because I don't have access to the information. All I can do is look at what I've seen, what everybody else has seen as well. You know, his cankles and his terrible diet and the marks on the back of his hand, which evidently is just from shaking too many hands. Stole that one right out of an episode of The West Wing. But there are reports that he had a stroke in September, but we can't confirm it. There are reports that he's showing all the signs of dementia, and I think that's I don't know how that couldn't be considered a reasonable thing. He's either got some sort of dementia or he is genuinely one of the stupidest people that's ever lived, and probably both. You know, it constantly, how many times there's a new word, portability. There are claims that he's got heart problems. But we don't know because we no longer live in a country where reliable, trustworthy information. I have a puppy that might need to come out. So you might hear some extra noise here in a minute. But we no longer live in a country where reliable, trustworthy information is shared by government resources. They have scrubbed government websites of factual information. They've appointed RFK Jr. to Health and Human Services, where he can end the war on whole milk and protein and all the good information about vaccines. He appointed a Fox News frat boy host to be the Secretary of War, who, by the way, settle down, Maple. Who's going to let Elon Musk grok kind of AI, which is currently being accused of creating CSAM material as well as porn on people without their consent? He's allowed Stephen Miller and the Project 2025 fascists to implement policies to turn this into a very particular type of Christian nation. His magical healthcare solution was to give Americans $2,000 a year to cover part of the healthcare costs that were increasing by nearly $2,000 a month for families of four in some areas. His poll numbers on nearly everything are the worst they've ever been for any president, as far as I could find. Has there been any movement or thought or action on behalf of climate change? Oh, why would you even ask that? That's one of the silliest things you could possibly ask. Of course, there hasn't been anything on climate change. I could keep going, but I can't remember it all, and I can't take enough notes. And that's part of the plan. Flood the zone, do everything. And when they stop part of it, ignore it, or do it again, or appeal it, and let it continue. He's toyed with suggesting we shouldn't have midterm elections, but it's just a joke about how he's doing so great that we shouldn't even bother. But in a little less than 287 days, the entire House is up for re-election, and 35 Senate seats are up for re-election as well. And I want to mention just one of the people running for office. And so I'll do this quick transition right here. If you go to votechristyburke.com, if you're in Tennessee District number 1, that is a deep red district and has been since the Civil War. Christy Burke is an atheist, former Christian secularist who's running for that House seat. I can't vote for or support her, but if you're in the Tennessee area, you might be able to offer some support and at least look at and consider her platform and others. And you can do the same. We need more people running for these offices. Joining me tonight, my friend and the guy that runs all this stuff here, Jimmy Snow. What's up, Jimmy?
Hi, everybody. I don't know. I think we should maybe do a fundraiser or something for Christy. Feels like I'll shoot her a text and see if that's something that the campaign would like. Hi, everybody. Yeah, a lot of stuff there. By the way, if I can add a couple of notes to a few of them. The eggs one is the one the Republicans like to bring up, and they really like to ignore some of the extended information, like how the egg prices before the bird flu problem was $2.10 to $2.50 across that year. And even when we got up to $2.50, that was because they started to see this bird flu thing might be about to be a problem. Right now, post bird flu issue, and you should keep in mind also post lowering of gas prices, which should also bring the price of eggs down, we're still up $1.50 from the pre-bird flu thing. The average consumer price. Now a lot of people love to go, but the average price of this and this, those are closer. Your consumer price. So get rid of how much McDonald's pays for eggs. Get rid of how much any major company that buys eggs to feature in their sandwiches and make it just about what do you go to the store and pay for. That's what's up, $1.50 since prior. So when they say eggs are only down compared to a peak that no one could control, but they haven't gone down pre-bird flu prices. By the way, if you lower gas by $1 per gallon, you save the consumer, the average consumer, $40 to $50 per month. We aren't down $1. We're down, what would the math on that be? 46 cents from the average in 2024 when Biden was in office, 24 to now. We're down from 330 to 284. Let's give them $1. That $40 to $50 that you are saving per month, how much is that saving you on, or rather, how much is of the increase in your healthcare prices because the subsidies have expired, is that covering right now? They also like to mention By the way, a lot of the numbers too, when it comes to how the economy is doing, we now have fewer reporting agencies. We now get fewer reports on wage growth and things like that because the Trump administration has limited those. And at times we'll just claim something the Democrats did means we couldn't even get those numbers out. When it comes to wages, the wages outpacing inflation, if you remove high paying jobs, the people who are, and you just keep it to middle and lower class, it's basically right on par. They're not outpacing. That is being offset by the high paying jobs. Their prices, their wages are going up so much that it makes everyone else look like they're doing well. And remember, you need to more than outpace inflation to get a raise. If you just match inflation, you're just making the same amount of money you were the year before.
Yeah.
So just a few notes.
I was trying to be very fair and just be like, oh, everything is completely worse. When if you do for example, this is why one of the reasons why if you just look at a map of inflation and compare a year ago to this, hey, it's down, but it's not down any significant amount, and essentially it's been flat if you exclude the COVID bump. It's been flat since the end of Trump's first administration. One big dip happened at the beginning when Biden first took over. Inflation went down to virtually non-existent. But then it started climbing back up again and other stuff. I tried to make sure as I went through this that I wasn't just doing the, everything is worse. When you look at the big picture, consumers have no confidence and are terrified. And the fact is, overall, my groceries haven't gone down. They've gone up. Even if eggs are slightly cheaper depending on which eggs you're getting and everything else. Maybe you shouldn't buy those fancy eggs, those free range eggs. Maybe you should just get the eggs in a carton. Those are down.
We get good eggs here because we have HEB. HEB's eggs are better than the national average and higher quality. And that's basically because we in Texas have an exception of a very woke corporation, by the way, who will not get rid of their DEI stuff. Last I checked, we are still up above what the national average was when Biden was in office. So it's like any way you try to work and make it an improvement, something comes back. And did you mention the Federal Reserve at all? I don't remember.
Only that he's trying to get rid of Jerome Powell.
Yeah. So, and Jerome Powell isn't going anywhere. And I don't think Donald Trump thought his investigation was going to, but Jerome Powell's term is almost up. The investigation into Jerome Powell and the amount of tension that there isn't actually to try and control Jerome Powell. It is about Trump is now going to get another appointment and he wants to filter out anybody who will defy him next time. Yep. And will very effectively do that. Because of the tax cuts and the fact that Donald Trump will set the interest rates when the new term happens, now they probably also want to get him off of the board of governors. That may be part of the investigation, but because Donald Trump will now be able to basically control the interest rates, like has happened very famously in Turkey, for example, look forward to all of the flat inflation we're seeing right now. Between that and the tax cuts, he is going to explode inflation. Literally, I am so tired of the Democrats doing like the diplomatic answer of like, if it leads to impeachment, well, run on his impeachment. Legitimately, like this is what Democrats' problem is. They try to figure out the messaging that won't offend anybody. Stop. Run on his impeachment and run on Medicare for all, and you will landslide victory. People want actual solutions. They want to hear we're going to go hard after it. And sure, Fox News will be mad. Stop going after Fox News. Go actually and have an actual fucking position for once, and you will win. But they're not going to listen to me.
So we're up for taking calls. As always, if you're a theist, you're going to go straight to the top of the queue. In particular, if you have some defense of God. But because we're talking about, MAGA in particular, I'm excited that Green Day is going to be doing the pre-show for the Super Bowl. It's the only thing I really care about in the Super Bowl, other than the fact that Bad Bunny is going to do the halftime show. And while I don't know shit about Bad Bunny, he pisses off MAGA folks, and that amuses me. But if you want to call and defend any of those things, Our lines are open, and we've got a caller right now. If you're ready, Jimmy.
Yeah, for sure.
Sweet.
Do we need to say the number? 720-619-2288. That's your number to talk to us.
It's right down at the bottom of the screen, and down below the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, where you can get down to the description, there's also a link there for direct calling through the web call-in studio. Wow, almost got a word out. So Tim is a deist calling from New York, so kind of almost gets through that way. Tim says leftists and liberals don't care about the mistreatment of white people. Well, I'm all manner of confused, Tim, because leftists and liberals aren't the same thing and don't necessarily care about this. Yes, can you hear me, Tim? Tim, can you hear me?
Can you call back?
You can't hear me?
Arden, did we test beforehand?
We did not. Let me check my settings. There might be.
Just my mere presence causes tech issues this time.
What it is. I might have to.
All right, no worries.
He's calling back right now, so hopefully that'll fix it.
I think I'm going to reset call-in studio real quick, so hold on.
Cool. I'm looking forward to this call. And any other MAGA person who wants to...
You are connected.
Wants to stand up for it.
All right. Put him live. We'll test it real quick.
I got to say, last night, it would be about 20 hours ago now, Air Force One over the Atlantic made a U-turn and went back to Air Force Base Andrews. And I have to stop watching news like that because I keep being like, oh, is it here? But it was a minor electrical issue.
Yes.
I think the setting should be right now, so we can try with him.
Let's give this a try.
So
well, I'm trying. It's still saying audio processing on my thing, but I can hear Tim. Tim, can you hear us?
Yeah, hello.
Awesome. It says here that you're saying leftists and liberals don't care about the mistreatment of white people. And I said I'm all manner of confused because liberals and leftists aren't the same and don't care about the same thing. But what is this mistreatment of white people that you think we don't care about? Hello? Oh, something put you back in the queue. Let me refresh that.
I was disconnected. Now I can hear you.
Yes.
So I'm basing this on several studies and surveys.
Tim, what is the mistreatment of white people that you think we don't care about?
If a white person is suffering, liberals and leftists do not care about it.
Okay.
And
I'm sorry, Tim, listen to me. You got to stop and listen. I'm aware that let me start over. You say leftists and liberals don't care about the mistreatment of white people. I said I'm confused because leftists and liberals aren't the same things. But you're saying when I asked you, what is the mistreatment of white people that you're talking about? All you did is say white people are mistreated and leftists don't care about it. What is the mistreatment you're talking about?
So, for instance, if there's an explicit discrimination,
no.
Against...
Tim, I don't want ifs. You say leftists and liberals don't care about mistreatment. Do you think it was mistreatment of a white person to shoot Renee Good in the face? Because I cared about that. Do you think it's mistreatment of a white person to increase my healthcare insurance? Because I care about that. But neither of these have anything to do with the fact that we're necessarily white. So what is the specific mistreatment of white people that you think we don't care about?
Well, I'll give you a specific example, but I was going to.
That's what I asked for. That's what I asked for. So just do it.
A specific example is in 2001, a man named Noel Ignatieff said that we should bash. Said at the most prestigious university, said that society should bash white people, and that was allowed. That was allowed and encouraged, and there was no backlash.
Tim.
Okay.
Tim, listen to me. So when I ask you for a specific example of mistreatment of white people, you went back 25 years to someone who merely exercised their free speech and said that we should bash white people. Where's the mistreatment of white people?
Can I give you the data that I want to give you? And
no,
then you
you
can
can't.
Make what you want
no, you can't, Tim. Here, let me mute you for just a second, Tim. I'm desperately trying to make a good call out of this. But when you say leftists and liberals don't care about the mistreatment of white people, and I ask you for an example, and then you say you're going to give me a specific example, and the very first and only attempt you've done so far at giving a specific example of the mistreatment of white people is that 25 years ago, someone suggested it should be okay to bash white people, which is an exercise of his free speech. All my question is, what is the specific example of white people mistreating? Because that person saying we should mistreat white people is not mistreatment of white people. So I'm going to unmute you.
It's also not what he said.
I'm sure I don't give a fuck.
Mhm.
I need Tim to give me a specific example of the mistreatment of white people that we don't care about. So let's try again. Tim, what's your example? Tim, what is your example of the mistreatment of white people?
Under affirmative action, poor white people were disadvantaged in school opportunities and scholarships compared to poor black people. And liberals were almost universally in favor of affirmative action.
Okay, so what?
No,
That? So first of all, the sort of affirmative action you're talking about is an attempt to correct systemic racism where other groups were disadvantaged, and so we were striving towards equality. Were there occasional overcorrections? Sure, but that's not us not caring about the mistreatment of white people. That's us saying, hey, you're no longer going to have the advantage that you had. You don't get to start the race ahead of everybody else.
Would you say that quotas was the reason why that happened, Tim?
Would I say that quotas are necessarily the reason why that happened? I would say...
Yeah. Would you say quotas was the part of affirmative action that caused the disadvantaging to white people?
Well, they would weigh the test scores of certain minorities more highly.
They wouldn't.
Yes, they would.
They wouldn't, because actually quotas wasn't a part of affirmative action. In fact, what affirmative action essentially meant was, hey, there is a system in place right now where when this position opens, all of your applicants are going to appear to be white. And there are a lot of systems that contribute to that, even to well-meaning organizations that didn't mean to do that. The way the systems that are below play into it means that that's who you're going to get. And affirmative action essentially balanced those scales and said, so here is a way that you are going to you can deliberately go out of your way without quotas, mind you. There were no quotas to affirmative action. This is how you go out of your way to make sure that when you are considering candidates, whether it be for education, whether it be for a job, that the people who have been kept out of these places, have been kept out of this system, will actually be present. In fact, what you are describing as disadvantaging white people was the loss of privilege. It was an advantage white people unduly had that they lost. And so, much like the caricature goes, you are a white person mistaking loss of privilege for oppression, which is no surprise coming from the guy who believes that Noel Ignative was essentially saying it's open season on white people. It is funny though, to prove it, you had to go with a dead guy from 2001.
There are actual charts on the scores that blacks could get into school with compared to white.
Yeah, Tim, we're really going to think that you have no racial discrimination tendencies, as you're now unironically calling them blacks. Tell us more about the blacks.
Well, you just said white, so what is that's okay and one's not?
Did I just say whites?
American.
But by the way, I'm a white, so I'm allowed to say that word. Don't you say the W word.
Sorry, that's
Tim, are you just biding time until you can drop the N word? Is that what you want?
Is that where we are with Tim?
There is data from the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Tim.
Okay, why can I not provide?
Tim, because you're incompetent.
Okay.
Tim, you called in to say that leftists and liberals don't care about mistreatment of white people. I asked you what the
And there's a
example.
study that-
I'm sorry, I'm still fucking talking. I realize that's confusing for you, but while I'm talking, you're not. I asked you for examples. It took us a hell of a long time to get to your flawed example. But if in fact there was mistreatment of white people, where is your evidence that we don't care about it?
Well, my evidence is there's a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research that shows that liberals do not react. They do not have an issue when discrimination is against whites, but only when it's against blacks.
Where's the discrimination against whites?
Against blacks.
I gave you the example and you told me that it's not true, but it's known.
It's not
known
true.
that-
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tim, that you have bought into some nonsense. But so let's say that there's a system where a group of people have been unfairly privileged for a period of time, such that they and their descendants and the people who look like them and the people who are part of their in-group have an unfair advantage. If you take steps to correct that, those people are not going to be as advantaged as they are, but that is not mistreatment of them. That is saying you no longer get to start the race ahead of everybody else. If there are mistakes and errors in there, as you're trying to correct, that is something that we do care about and have corrected, which is why we don't have the same sort of initial affirmative action type stuff. It's why the views on quotas and countless other things have changed as society changed. Tell me what I don't care about, because right now I don't care what your opinion is, because you don't seem to be in touch with reality.
Matt, if you don't mind, I'd actually like
Go
to
right
force him to expose himself real quick. Will you go ahead for me and pull up the study you just referenced and read the abstract to us?
Which study?
The one you just said that you
National
quoted from
Bureau of
NBER.
Economic
Yep, NBER. It's called "When is Discrimination Unfair?" It is written up by Peter Kuhn and Trevor Osaki. Would you mind reading to us the abstract? Have you actually read this study, or did somebody quote it to you? Well, I pulled it up, so I'm sure you can. Would you like me to read it to you?
Go for it, Jimmy. Read it.
Using a vignette-based survey experiment on Amazon's Mechanical Turk, we measure how people's assessments...
Jimmy's reading right now, so I'm going to mute you, Tim, because you don't know how to be quiet when other people are talking.
We measure how people's assessments of the fairness of race-based hiring decisions vary with the motivation and circumstances surrounding the discriminatory act and the races of the parties involved. Regardless of their political leaning, our subjects do not distinguish between taste-based and statistical discrimination, but they react in very similar ways to other aspects of the act, such as the quality of the information on which statistical discrimination is based. Compared to conservatives, moderates and liberals are much less accepting of discriminatory actions and consider the discriminatee's race when making their fairness assessments. We describe 4 simple models of fairness: utilitarianism, race-blind rules, racial and group bias, and belief-based utilitarianism, and show that the latter 2 are inconsistent with major patterns in our data. Instead, we argue that a 2-group model in which conservatives care only about race-blind rules, while moderates and liberals care about both race-blind rules and utilitarian ethics, can account for the main patterns we see. What this says, and I think it has to be explained to you because you've apparently heard a Newsmax summary, is that liberals actually care very similarly. However, they are a little bit more considerate when it comes to overall data and systemic issues that affect Black people, but their overall reaction, especially when a person is just emotionally responding to the whiteness of a person, is the same as if they're emotionally responding to the blackness of a person. You did not read the study. You watched a clip that I'm sure made it all the way to a Joe Rogan Experience episode or some shit, and you have now basically repeated what somebody else told you, Tim. So first you have misquoted the guy you were trying to talk about from 2001, and now you have misrepresented this study, which actually finds, to my surprise even, I wouldn't have been this surprised if a study had come out and been like, yeah, there's like a 30% reduction in empathy if the victim of a crime is white or something like that, which is what you were kind of representing. We're not even close to that.
Essentially, I mean, this summary says that unlike what Tim's saying, whether you're liberal, left, right, or not, subjects reacted similarly to employers' motivations, but moderates and liberals were much less accepting of discriminatory actions than conservatives. So you're calling in to say that liberals and leftists don't care about mistreatment of white people, when what you should be saying is that liberals and lefties care more about discrimination than conservatives do. That's what that study shows. And that while we may care more about, well, and this isn't even a direct quote from the abstract at all, but given Jimmy's summary of it, we are willing to consider race, and we are looking at individuals who've been consistently disadvantaged. That doesn't mean we don't care about mistreatment of white people. So let's try this again, Tim. Welcome back to the show. What do you have to say about the actual abstract of the study you wanted us to look at?
I think if you take a look at the data, it shows a major difference in reaction.
Tim, I'll bet every penny in my wallet you've never looked at the data and don't know anything about the data, because you can't even get the abstract right. You don't get to call in and tell us to look at a study and then say, I think if you look at the data, you'll see this. Well, I don't see that.
I'm curious, Tim,
Okay.
What do you think motivated Peter Kuhn and Trevor Osaki to misrepresent the findings of the study that you're saying down below? If you isolate to some small piece of it is what's going to happen. We're going to find that your summary is better than theirs, which implies an amount of purposeful dishonesty on their part. Why do you think Peter Kuhn and Trevor Osaki would have lied in their abstract and said, essentially, there isn't a difference except for that liberals care a little bit more? By the way, leftists are not represented in the study. Liberals care a little bit more about systemic unfairness than conservatives do. Why do you think they misrepresented it, and that your conclusion, hang on,
more of anti-black and anti-white discrimination?
why do you believe that your conclusion of the data is better than the people who performed the study and wrote up the review?
Yes.
Because I can see with my eyes.
Can they not see with their,
can they not,
hang on, Tim, are you suggesting they can't see with their eyes?
No.
Okay. And are they the people who performed this study and wrote it?
Yes, they are. But you can.
And you think? Hang on. I'm asking very basic questions so you can see the problem. I promise. You think they were honest in the study but dishonest in the abstract?
I think I take my own conclusions from what I see.
I'm sorry. Do you think I don't give a shit about your own conclusions? Why can you not be honest? See, this is the problem, is these individuals, I have no idea if they're honest. You might have a good case that they were honest in reporting the data and dishonest in their abstract. But when I ask you that, instead of answering it, you just go to, I just use my own eyes. Nobody gives a fuck about your eyes. Tim, I don't know why you're talking. It's never, ever going to work. So here's some individuals who performed a study, and I'm trying to figure out, where do you think they lied? Do you think they lied in the abstract or in the data? Or both?
Well, they didn't lie when they said they disapproved more of anti-black than anti-white discrimination. And they didn't use a qualifier there.
I'm sorry. I asked you, do you think they lied in the data or in the abstract?
No, I don't think they lied.
Okay. So when the abstract disagrees with you, and when we look at the data and don't see that the data in any way suggests that liberals don't care about the mistreatment of white people, but you think that's what it says, why should we agree with you when your view is inconsistent with the people who you think are telling the truth when they put together both the data and the abstract?
you don't have to base everything on one study.
I'm sorry,
giving you,
Tim, I'm sorry. I'm asking you a very specific question. You think these people reported the data honestly and did not lie in their abstract, and their conclusions don't match yours, and yet you're going to prioritize yours and say that liberals don't care about mistreatment of white people. Why should we agree with you instead of the people who wrote the paper?
I think that I think that you're not representing it in a totally neutral manner.
Tim, I'm asking you a very simple question. I'm very sorry that you can't figure this out. Why should we pay more attention to your opinion? We don't know you. We don't know what you've read. We don't know what you understand. We don't know what. Why should we pay more attention to your opinion than the authors of this paper?
I didn't say you should. I was going to give you.
Cool. Then why are you calling? Then why are you calling in? Then why are you calling in to give us an opinion that you don't think we should care more about than the opinion of the experts?
Because I have several pieces of information.
No. I'm going to trust the experts and the data over some random person who can't communicate or argue their way out of a wet paper bag. Who forces me to listen, it forces me to ask the same question 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times before they get anywhere near. Tim, let me ask you a couple questions, please. Do you have any expertise at all in this field or statistical study related to this field?
Do you? No, I don't. Do you?
Bye. I'm not going to hang up on you, but here's the thing, Tim. Everything about your answer exposes the problem with your brain, because I never claimed or implied that I have any expertise here. I referred to the actual experts, and my question was about why we should pay any attention to you over the experts. Do you have any expertise in this area? Do you have some study here? Do you have some data that contradicts theirs? Anything like that? And your response to that, shut up. Don't say another word until I give you leave to speak, Tim, please. Your response to that was to ask me if I had expertise. So I'm going to ask you a question. Did I claim to have any expertise? Yes or no?
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. So why did you pretend or accuse me of, why did you even ask me if I had any expertise? Is my expertise relevant to the question that I asked you? Yes or no?
Which you asked me 2 questions.
Was my expertise relevant to the question that I asked you? Yes or no?
No.
No. So if my expertise isn't relevant to the question I asked you, why would you ask if I had expertise in this area?
Because you're acting condescending about me not having expertise.
Oh, no. I'm not acting condescending about you. I am condescending to you because you are the one who's asserting. You raised whether or not you raised an irrelevant point in response to a relevant question. You avoided relevant questions on multiple occasions in order to deflect to something else. You cited a study that you clearly hadn't studied. And when Jimmy corrected you on what the study actually says, you decided to dodge and move to something else. And so all of this becomes a big waste of time. Whereas we could just refer to, here's what the study says, here's what the experts say, here's where it's cited and referenced. Instead, you are calling in with a mission. You have a biased perspective that is based on a flawed understanding of a study. And your complaint is that liberals, I'm still talking. I don't know why this is so difficult for you. I literally told you, don't speak until I give you leave to speak. Do I have to mute you?
Go ahead.
You have a bias that you're calling in to complain about. You're calling into a couple lefties, suggesting that we, because we're lefties, don't care about the mistreatment of white people. And what did we do? Right from the beginning, we asked you, what is the mistreatment? You started by going back to a 25-year-old account that isn't mistreatment, that wasn't even necessarily calling for mistreatment. You are erratically all over the place. So let's stop and back up. Let's restart the entire call to give Tim the best chance at making his case.
Can I ask him a couple more questions about the study first?
Okay.
Can I provide you another piece of information?
As soon as I finish up with
I've
you in the
lost
study,
control.
Tim, because I want to know that you said you see the data yourself. So I want to see that that is true. Okay, Tim? So, Tim, does the study find that liberals find anti-white discrimination more, the two options, more fair or more unfair? Do liberals find anti-white discrimination more fair or more unfair?
Very slightly more unfair. Yes.
It's not very slightly, but it is more unfair. It is more unfair. The study does find, and as so we already cited, that they find anti-black discrimination slightly more unfair than anti-white discrimination, again, going into that this has to do with more like systemic things, which is fine. Now, since you're making this liberal versus conservative, in the study, what does it, excuse me, I'm not done. In the study, which way do the moderates tend to vote? With the liberals or with the conservatives, specifically on racial discrimination?
Give me one moment.
Yeah. So you didn't know going in, by the way. Just want to point this out. I wouldn't ever quote a study that I don't feel I could answer basic questions about.
I was mostly focused on liberals, so.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, that's the problem. Do you understand how that sentence alone demonstrates a bigotry on your part? Do you understand how that sentence alone demonstrates a bigotry on your part?
Because you're describing this as a quality of liberalism, as a flaw with liberalism, and yet you didn't bother to find the data that's in there that would point to whether or not it is literally a liberal characteristic at all. And to go ahead and jump ahead and spoil it for everybody, the moderates answered almost identically to the liberals. It is in fact the conservatives that basically just say, I don't care. And frankly, in a little way, more equally, but they're actually on the other side. They are less empathetic to discrimination, but at least they're okay when it's white people too. They're just sort of, whatever, on both ends. So realistically, if we want to talk about the qualities of everything here, this study actually would be bad for the point you're trying to make. So yes, you may now move to the next set of data if you like, or we can stick here. You can, or whatever Matt had said, we can start over.
What I wanted to do, so keep going.
Matt said, let's start over and you can give your best argument. Let's not go with a bad set of data you're not familiar with enough to answer basic questions about or able to repeat what's in the abstract. Let's go with your best data you're the most familiar with. This is going to be the challenge for Matt and I because you just know it, Tim. Let's go with that data, with that argument for your evidence that we don't care about white suffering.
According to Aaron Cooley this is specifically critical of a certain teaching about white privilege. It says, according to Aaron Cooley of Colgate University, among social liberals, learning about white privilege reduces sympathy, increases blame, and decreases external attributions for white people struggling with poverty. And it says,
what data did Aaron Cooley base it on? Because I don't care about the opinion of a guy or a girl. I don't know. Aaron is a abstract name. Or are they?
See what the totals are.
What data were they citing? I would never say to you biology, evolution's true because Richard Dawkins claims it is.
What's that? Sorry?
So far, you have said this is true because a university professor has made a claim. And then the question will be whether or not the claim actually is true. And then whether the truth of the claim makes your summary. Because, Tim, the actual thing you should come in here and say is, people, the further left you go, the less you are likely to believe that systemic white discrimination is a problem the way black systemic discrimination is a problem, because that is true. That statement is true, and it is true, the summary is true, and the political leaning would be true. You came in and said liberals don't care about white suffering. Weird, because liberals have literally been marching in the streets for some recent white suffering. It's actually a little sad that it took a white woman to get them marching at that level, because we've literally been sending people to concentration camps. But you know, you work with the people you have, not the people you wish you had. So your overall summary, Tim, first of all, seems you're already giving up on that we don't care about white suffering. Seems very, very dumb. But go on now. Go ahead and give us the data.
I need to hang on. I need to point out that because we already, from the last study, know that the conservatives largely don't care about this. When you look at the liberals who do care about the inequality at a greater rate, the study that Aaron Cooley was referencing, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily reach the conclusion you'd like to think it does, it's basically hypothesized that white privilege lessons may both highlight structural privilege based on race, so expose it's the whole purpose of teaching about privilege in general is to highlight racial privilege and other privileges. And it's the hypothesis that it might simultaneously decrease sympathy for other challenges some white people endure, for example, poverty. And the thing is, if I'm in a position where I have sympathy for, let's just say, only two groups, white folks and black folks, just to make this easy, and I learn about privilege to where my focus shifts to making up for the underprivileged status of black folks that is systemically data-driven shown to be a problem, then by shifting my focus, what we're talking about is basic triage. I have a limited amount of, I'm still talking, Tim. Don't you dare fucking do that again. Do I make myself clear?
Got it.
Thank you. I have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of things to focus on. And so it makes sense that if I'm starting to focus on a different group, that I might not focus enough on another group that has had focus on it in the past. And that could legitimately be a problem. But that doesn't mean that we don't care. What it means is that it, like in any other situation where there is harm being done and a problem to solve, you have to triage. You do a cost-benefit analysis. You have a certain amount of hours in the day, a certain number of dollars in the bucket. And there may be, this is what I was pointing out before, the attempt to fix this may make mistakes. But you're suggesting that the liberals don't care about it. When these systems are in place to teach and expose the problem and attempt to correct it because of those liberals and not because of the conservatives, right?
Sure.
Cool. So what's the problem with trying to make the world a better place, evaluating the data, and not getting it exactly right, but over many, many decades, gradually honing in on making sure that nobody is at a significant disadvantage at the outset because of their race, because of their gender, whatever. But what's wrong with that?
But that way, nothing.
Cool.
Nothing.
Then that's what DEI is. That's the thing that you're whining about the liberals not caring. It's the conservatives who aren't caring. They're not wanting to put those programs in place. They want to pretend that the problem doesn't happen, and they think that it's a pie where if anybody comes to take part of their pie, they have to hoard it, which is why, well, anyway. So if there's nothing wrong with that, why aren't you in favor of helping fix discrimination? Do you think that there are privileged groups of people?
I think that we should treat people individually.
Okay. Well,
not based on their demographic.
In that fantasy world where you get to avoid my question, cool. But in the real world where you don't get to avoid my question, try answering it.
We have to get DVR for these shows. because we have to get to where we can go back and play the first thing a person said and show then Tim said to us these things that liberals are this way, totally unaware that that was based on a study that also says moderates are this way. That's not actually a quality of liberalism. It's actually a quality of non-conservatism is the best you could pull out of that.
Yeah.
And the irony of we should be like more nuanced in treating individuals as individuals. And now, Tim, I'm going to find out if you are familiar. Sorry, did you finish your questions?
No, I want an answer to my question. Tim,
Yeah,
do
go
you
ahead.
think there are privileged classes? Yes or no?
There are privileged classes, yes. Of
Okay.
course there are privileged
So
classes.
so in the system that we have here in the United States, systemically, as a general rule, if you are born white in the United States, are you more advantaged than someone born black in the United States?
Economically, yes.
I didn't. Okay. I'll just take the yes because Tim is now desperately flailing around. By the way, aren't you the one that made this all about poverty? So you could have just said yes. What, but why say economically yes? What category is it where on average white people are disadvantaged?
I've told you, I think that there are social privileges to being a minority at this point.
You really
I
wish
think
you were
it's
black,
reversed.
don't you, Tim?
That is an
Why would I wish I
absolutely
was black? Are there advantages?
No. That's a joke. So if you could become black tomorrow, would you?
I wouldn't care.
You're a liar.
Hey,
would
Tim,
not care.
what was Aaron Cool? So we're talking about then teaching about white privilege. And by the way, so people understand better, because basically in that time, I was able to read most of the relevant information while they were chatting. And so we're going to find out some of your familiarity here too. Aaron Cooley, the actual conclusion essentially is the study is done where you're presented a poor black Kevin and a poor white Kevin, and teaching about white privilege tended to make some groups of people less sympathetic to the fact that white Kevin was poor, but their sympathies didn't change for black Kevin. In fact, they didn't go up either. They didn't become more sympathetic to black Kevin either, but they did become less sympathetic to poor people. So now with that, what is the conclusion of Aaron Cooley about teaching about white privilege?
Hold on. I'm reading an article. I'm reading a Pacific.
No.
So when I told you earlier that you need to go with your best argument that you're already very familiar with, that you'd be able to absolutely, it'll be our worst nightmare. You're once again going with something that you don't have the complete information of. And if you were a skeptic like me, you'd have been able to do what I've done to you, to yourself. Because when I am investigating something and I have a bias, it is programmed into me to go, here's the conclusion I'm getting. Is this conclusion already counterindicated by the material somewhere that I am ignoring? It's basically a blind spot check that you don't have. And Aaron Cooley's conclusion is not to stop teaching about white privilege. In fact, Aaron Cooley concludes that it is important to teach about white privilege, but to also make sure that we are reminding people that if you are born essentially into poverty, there are still systems against you that don't have just to do with race, that we should actually be reminding people that people who are white and poor still have a lot of stuff working against them. But by the way, it would still be true that people who are black and poor have more working against them than people who are white and poor. But essentially, you will be more ambivalent to a person who is unable to succeed despite all of the privileges you have as a white person, when those privileges are in fact in place, than you would be if you haven't learned about white privilege. So correcting the way to teach about white privilege is the conclusion by Aaron Cooley, not whatever it seems to be that you're suggesting, I guess I'm presuming you want us to not teach about white privilege since you actually think that black privilege is the thing that exists. And you think that the information you're presenting today is all cohesive with that belief.
I think that there are a set of privileges depending on the person. I don't think, or depending on your demographic, I don't think.
I'm sorry, Tim, but
group
we're
has all the
talking about, we're not talking about an individual. There
Okay.
are individuals of any number of categories that are incredibly privileged. And there are individuals that are incredibly underprivileged. We're talking about a system. You create the rules for the system, not knowing who you're going to be. Given our current system and everything that you know and understand about it, if you could come into the system as a white kid or a black kid, which one would you pick?
I don't know. I don't have a preference.
Okay, if you don't have a preference, if you don't have a preference, then you don't think there's any equality, which means there's nothing to worry about. Thanks for calling, Tim, but I don't have the time to sit here and let you read and try to find more studies. I'm sorry, I'm still talking. As I explained to you about 20 fucking times in the 20 million times you've called to do this crap, I'm talking. Here's what I don't have time for. I don't have time to put other callers on hold while you desperately go out and study and search and read papers live on air to try to find a justification for your biased bullshit opinion. If you don't care and you're happy coming into this system, white or black, cool. Then you don't think there's any privilege. You don't think there's any advantage. You don't think there's anything to worry about. And you don't then, therefore, don't have any reason to accuse liberals about not caring about the mistreatment of white people because you don't think the mistreatment of white people exists. Thanks for calling, Tim. Go do your studying and call back after you've studied. I don't need you studying live on air. Clear? Cool. It's so wild. He admits to bias. He admits to having the, I didn't look at that part. I was mostly looking at liberals. Yeah. Because somebody's convinced you that you need those liberal tears and that the liberals are wrong. And by the way, liberals are wrong about all kinds of stuff.
I know. I'm literally looking at the next call and I'm like, how are people going to call in and keep making me defend the Democrats because they give a binary proposition?
Yeah, it's so terrible. I was actually going to go
we can go wherever you want.
That's all right. We'll do it. Brian's calling from Florida. Brian's a theist, prone to him. We'd like to talk about the fact that Republicans are better for black people than Democrats are. Hey, Brian, how are you? And what year are you living in?
I'm well. I don't know if it's a fact. I mean, it's an opinion.
Well,
for sure.
Okay.
I think,
what year are you living in?
We can be respectful and talk about it.
What year are you living in?
See, I don't understand. You think I'm being old-fashioned?
Once upon a time, I would say that Republicans were definitely better for black people, like a long time ago. Why do you think Republicans are better for black people now?
Well, it's a core ethos between Democrats and Republicans that Republicans think that black people can do it without the help of the government, and Democrats do not believe that. And I think there's
what a dishonest way to put that.
I would like for you to prove that Republicans actually, so for example, let's take a Republican who says, I think black folks can do it without help. And another Republican that says, I'm not going to help them because they're black. And tell me how I can tell the difference between those two.
I don't think you see anyone saying that they're not doing that because they're black. And I think that's the misconception.
No, Brian, stop fucking talking. I'm sorry that hypotheticals are difficult for you. I'm saying
I'm going to hang up on
sorry.
You, buddy. You're not going to talk to me like that.
Okay, I am going to talk to you in a way where I tell you to stop talking so that I can direct. Oh, you ran away, Brian.
Whiny little bitch.
And the other caller hung up because Brian took it. So now we're down to no callers, all because Brian, the fragile little baby, couldn't handle being told, hang on a second. I set up a hypothetical, and I'm going to do my hypothetical, Brian. I'm sorry that you are too weak to engage in an honest conversation. Your point was that Republicans are better for black people because Republicans respect the black person and think that they have the ability to do it themselves. And my question was essentially, how do I tell the difference between someone who respects them and thinks they have the ability to do it themselves and someone who denies the systemic abuses and devaluing and underprivileged positions that have gone on for ages? Imagine two Republicans. One of them says, I respect the black person and I'm not going to give them any help because I think they can do it themselves. And another one that says, I fucking hate black people and I don't want them to get, any kind of advantage. So I'm not going to help them. And a third white person that just says, I just don't see any problem here at all. And so I'm not going to offer help. How do you tell the difference between those? Because this caller was essentially saying, Republicans are better because they respect the black person. But isn't that flatly a denial that there's a problem?
Yeah. We had a caller the other day who told us that it would have been that the slaves should have revolted. That it was on them that slavery lasted so long because why didn't they revolt? Why didn't they overturn slavery? Unironically making this case to Javon and I. And by the way, I was going to ask Brian whether he was white or black because I'm not going to explain black issues to a black guy, but I would have told him you can call on Sunday and talk to Javon. But at the end of the day, we're talking about Democrats. You are wrong. Democrats are better for black people than Republicans. I would have loved to ask Brian if he's correct. Why do black people disproportionately vote with the Democrats? And then watch his bigotry come out because it's going to be some version of he doesn't think they're smart enough or they're being fooled or something like that. But at the end of the day, Democrats still don't do enough for black people. Democrats still worry way too much about the optics of things that would actually be meaningful. Democrats aren't doing nearly enough. Neither of them are good for black people. However, Democrats are better for them. And in fact, there is hard data. There's like a long-term federal review of incomes that under Democrats, the average black household income goes up by, I think it's like $1,000 a year, whereas you lose money under Republicans. And generally, the economies do better under Democrats than Republicans. But, these are just the facts.
All I was trying to get to is, how do you tell the difference between the respect model that Brian thinks is the case and the denial of reality or the support of the reality that has black folks dealing with disadvantages? Not all the time, not in every circumstance. It's weird.
The thing he was going to do was try to make the case that they like to say now, which I believe was popularized by a liberal, but it's the bigotry of low expectations. And he was going to claim that we're bigoted because we're saying they can't do it. No, we're saying there are systemic injustices still present today that should be removed.
How can you make a case that, they can do it on their own without any help if we have data that shows that, for example, and we don't just have to do this based on race, when you submit a resume, when two people submit a resume, the perceived gender of the individual, the perceived race of the individual, the perceived Americanness of the name of the individual, before they ever get an interview, can determine the likelihood that they're going to get an interview. And we cannot scrub that. We cannot make the hiring process completely blind to this, because you have to be able to do background checks on people. You have to be able to look up to find out who's even who's even worth your time to do an interview. But if you don't have protections in there, this isn't about giving people advantage. It's about overcoming advantage or disadvantage. It's about making sure that we're starting on at least the closest to even footing we can. There's nothing about DEI or quotas or affirmative action that suggests you can't still be a racist bigot and refuse to hire them once they get in the door. You can absolutely do that. And by the way, it's the left that traditionally has supported the free speech that has allowed you racist bigots to keep being racist bigots, because I want you just happy enough to let us know how racist you are so that we can tell who you are. But
To me, the metaphor is this. Imagine you have a white guy and he has to go through the regular basic training obstacle course, and you have a black guy and he has to go through a Tough Mudder. And we're saying, wait, they're racing together, but the black guy has to do a Tough Mudder. This guy just has to do the regular, like, shouldn't the black guy's obstacles only be as hard as the white guys? Actually, this would arguably be the Democrats' argument. Shouldn't the black guys only be as hard as the white guys? And this guy's calling in and saying you're being racist because you're saying the black guy can't do it, which isn't what they're saying. Now, the actual socialist in the room, the actual leftist goes, hey, these obstacle courses were put there by billionaires, and most of these obstacles are unnecessary in the first fucking place for either of them. So yes, let's equalize, let's make these equitable, and then let's get a shit ton of them off there, because neither of these sets of obstacles are necessary. Billionaires, millionaires, rich people are keeping them there as they skirt through life, having to go over mild anthills that don't even have any ants in them for their obstacle course. Like, that's the metaphor to me. That was so fucking dumb.
it's wild because I can flip this argument completely on its head. And that would be this. What Brian's suggesting is, even if it is an unfair system, Brian respects black folks so much that he knows they can succeed even in an unfair system. So why fix the system? That's what Brian's case is.
If Brian's white, I guarantee you he's also one of the guys who's very worried about the day that the United States is no longer majority white, which is funny because Texas, they look at Texas as this like conservative bastion. Like, boy, Texas, though, they're doing it right. You know what Texas isn't? Majority white. So what are you guys so afraid of? Why are you so afraid of the rest of America being more like Texas?
It's well, we got other callers I want to get to, but hello, producer lady person, my love, my wonderful. Tomorrow is going to be the Transatlantic Call-In show, but I did not. I was so busy because we were going to do a reptile expo, but we're getting ready to have the biggest freeze in 5 years here, and so we are not going to the reptile expo this weekend. I am disappointed that we won't get to see folks, but I'm happy that we will get to stay here and stay warm. Who's on the Transatlantic Call-In show tomorrow? That's going to be at 2 p.m. Central.
Tomorrow it is Josie Caballero and Dr. Ben. Then this Sunday we have Seth Andrews and Erica Gutsa-Gibbon on the Sunday show. That'll be a really fun one for the early show.
Yeah.
Forrest Valkai will be joined by Shannon Q on After Dark at 7 p.m. Skeptalk on Monday will be Aaron Adair and Erica Gutsa-Gibbon again. Chewed Gum on Tuesday will be Alyssa and Taylor, the Skeptical Heretic. And then Javon Bradley will be joining us back here on The Hang Up next week.
He'll be with me on Sunday, too.
I'm so sorry that Brian felt it was unfair that he just wouldn't be talked to like that. Like, hey, pause, it's my show. I need to ask you a question to direct things. Oh, okay. But
I hope he calls to talk to Javon, either next Wednesday on your show or on our show on Sunday.
That's fine. Charlie's an atheist calling from California. Pronouns are him. What's the political future for the USA? Charlie, how are you? Why would you call and ask me this? I have no fucking clue.
Well, you both seem like smart guys. I feel like you'll probably be able to give an interesting answer, but myself personally, I can't say for sure. I just know that I'm looking forward to post-Trump politics. I don't know what exactly that'll look like or how, or if we're even going to get there on schedule in 2029, which is what I'm particularly curious about, is when this entire weird story arc will at least officially be over. But I don't know.
I don't anticipate in my lifetime going to bed feeling like the fascists are done. We got it. We're good now. Everything's on a good track. But
I fully, I'm with Jimmy. Right now, I fully expect that the rest of my life, whether it's short or long, will be spent fighting and fixing what this administration has done.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. I think that's probably accurate. Probably going to have a lasting impact.
As much as I hate to quote Marjorie Taylor Greene, there's also probably some sort of divorce coming. The country, it's in the post, you have all the information at your fingertips world. We find out that now it's actually easier to spread misinformation than before, because before you still had to rely on word of mouth to take any amount of time, and you could intercept people with good information in that time. Now you can instantly turn people, overnight into 9/11 truthers, and we didn't land on the moon, and there's a cabal of people, and Candace Owens makes sense. That kind of shit.
It's absolutely true. It's you can find a source in quotes for basically everything, which is very scary. Because of a lot of nonsense. You can find a source for a lot of nonsense, and people will find it and they'll think, well, it's true because I found this, weird niche thing in some dark corner of the internet saying that it's true. So.
Yep. I don't have much else. Bleak. The future of politics in the U.S. is bleak. I want to go to bed one night thinking there's no chance Stephen Miller will ever be president of this country. I don't know that anyone could hate Stephen Miller more than I hate him. Truly, I hate him more than Trump.
See, and I worry because right now, we have one person calling in, but there's people in chat saying we're not cooked. Why don't you call in and explain why we're not cooked? Because if what you mean by cooked is what I mean by cooked, we're absolutely, completely cooked. What is this defense?
What kind of divorce do you think might be coming, Jimmy?
I wouldn't know how to predict that because there's no constitutional room for it.
Yeah.
So I don't see how the country can persist as it is now. But it's not as though there is a way. California can't simply secede. If it was that easy, somebody would have by now, not California first.
They definitely shouldn't do it while Gavin Newsom's in charge because he's crap.
And unfortunately, he'll probably our next president.
God, I hope not.
Yeah.
But granted, if we get to vote and if it comes down to him or MAGA, Newsom will be the president. I'm actually looking for some other changes, but
I am too. But I should be more specific. He is likely our next elected president. I still think J.D. Vance will be president before the 2026 is over, but our next elected president will be. You saw him with Ben Shapiro this week, where it was like, hey, you know those things that I do that are kind of based and cool? Let me just back off all of them.
Yeah. No, I heard about it. I didn't watch it, but Charlie, I gotta let you go, but thanks a lot for calling in.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Sorry, we don't have... Hey, can we get a poll up in chat about whether or not the audience wants to hear from Brian again after he ran off? Because he's calling in to see if we're willing to have a civil conversation. And I think we were having a civil conversation before you ran away like a little baby because I dared to ask you a question to clarify stuff. So let's put a poll up and see, does the audience want to try to engage Brian again? Because if they say they do, we will. I never say I'm not a people pleaser. Maureen is calling from Canada, pronouns are she, her. Hey, Maureen, how are you and what's going on?
I'm fine. How are you guys?
Exhausted, half dead, tired of all this shit.
Aren't we all? I'm not an economist, but I was just wondering what your thoughts are on every time he makes a stupid comment about like using force for Greenland, the stock market falls. And then the next day he makes maybe I won't do that. And then the stock market goes up again. And I'm kind of thinking
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump. I think he's
Taco Trump.
Oh, Taco Trump. Yeah. But I think his people are focusing on the stock market, and that's given them a false sense of things going well. I heard
Correct.
today, I was watching something where Europe owns 10% of the U.S. debt, and they're starting to sell it off. Now, that's going to be bad for your economy, right?
Yes.
So why isn't people talking more about that? Because I really think it's the economy that's the big thing that's going to destroy him.
May I?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Because Democrats suck too. And for the last several decades, we have measured the economy not on how everybody is doing, but on how rich people are doing. So Biden got to pretend he was a great economic president, and even Obama, but a lot of this happened under Biden, starts under Trump. Think about the unemployment numbers they are touting right now. They're very low. They got very low under Biden. Doesn't that just sound excellent? Now, are we going to ignore what percentage of people are self-employed, working for a company like Uber, working for a company like DoorDash with no benefits, with no guaranteed income, but they are technically employed, and how that has gone up? That these companies like Uber, when they need to increase profits, don't first go, how do we increase our service? No, they go, we have a bunch of contractor employees. What if we just keep more of the money? What if we just take more out of their fees? What if we just do that? So yeah, the reason why is because both parties agreed to never worry about what poor people and middle-class people are going through when saying how the economy is doing. So because Donald Trump gets to use the same type of bullshit numbers that Joe Biden got to use to say everything's doing well. Now, granted, the Republicans are now doing the same dumb thing Kamala Harris did in her campaign, which is go, hey, we know you guys are saying you're not doing well, but look at all of these victories. Look at all these things we did well. I'm getting my audio repeated back to me for some reason, Maureen, if you can fix your speakerphone or whatever.
Sorry.
They're doing it now too. He's saying it's a hoax. Look at how great the stock market is. I don't own a single goddamn stock except for maybe a 401k from an old employer I had, if that thing's still kicking around somewhere. Like the reason why they get to make it look like it's going well is because the Democrats agreed that we would use bullshit measures to describe whether or not the economy is well. So the real thing is, we have always measured the economy on how are rich people doing. And rich people are doing very well right now. They're doing great, little guys.
That's true. You brought something up there about the unemployment numbers. How do you know the unemployment numbers? Because he's fired everybody that would give you proper numbers. He's just making shit up.
That's true too. That's true too, but the unemployment numbers were bullshit before. Well, we can't say making shit up. He hasn't gotten rid of everybody, and technically on a delay, a lot of his numbers are still getting corrected by other institutions that track those numbers, and then he's just complaining about it when those happen. But yes, his numbers are even better than they actually are because he's just straight up lying. You're not wrong about that. But again, the bullshit started. He didn't start the fire. He's just an arsonist who's better at burning everything down than other people.
So the point I was trying to bring up about the U.S. debt, doesn't like China own a lot of that debt? And wouldn't it be like every economy is so interconnected? I guess it would be bad for them to try to sell off your debt to destroy your economy since you buy so much of their product. So is there anybody that's going to be able to rein this guy in? Do something.
Father Time?
Him. Pardon me?
Perhaps Father Time.
Clogged arteries.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right now, there's a little piece of cholesterol flapping in the bloody wind that we're all waiting to be our hero.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It's made of KFC gravy.
Maureen, we're not going to have answers to that, and certainly none that aren't going to get us in trouble. I find that while I'm generally opposed to violence after watching what ICE has done, I'm less opposed than I used to be, which is a really weird place to be. And I don't like it. I hate what this administration is kind of pushing me to try to find ways to justify. I'm not there yet at all, and I'm too old and slow and weak and tired and feeble to be effective at any of it other than that. But we've got Brian calling back. Maureen, you want us to talk to Brian?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet.
Love to hear it.
Thank you so much. Have
Not
fun.
that you ever
Goodbye.
need an asterisk on what you say, Matt, but the way I've been putting it to people recently is my secular humanism was almost to a level of fault on how much about preserving human life, and everything we're going through is making me feel more sympathetic to, as I look through history, why it seems there was only that one way to get rid of Nazis.
Yeah. I'm going to bring Brian back in. Brian, don't talk for a second. I'd like to try to fix this. So Brian's calling back from Florida, and Brian's message here says, I'm calling back to see if he's willing to have a civil conversation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore that, and I'm going to let Brian choose whether he only talks to Jimmy or he talks to both of us, and we'll ignore everything that happened, and we'll ignore any sort of, can we have a civil conversation? But because I might be the problem here, Brian, are you wanting to talk to both of us or maybe just Jimmy?
Well, it's your show, and I am not going to tolerate, cussing at me, degrading.
That's too fucking bad. That's too fucking bad.
Saying things like that.
That's too fucking bad.
Well, you're
recognize
interrupting
that
me
it's
now.
Yes, I am interrupting you because you don't get to tell me what kind of fucking language I use on my own fucking show.
So let's do the Jimmy thing then.
Fuck yeah.
Jimmy thing.
Let's fucking do it, Brian.
Cool.
Let's fucking do it.
Because I want you to be I'm going to shut up in just a second and just let you talk to Jimmy. I don't give a flying fuck about your wounded feelings, your fragile ego, or your puritanical concerns about language. When you recognize that this was my show, you should also recognize you don't get to call in and tell me how I'm going to do it. I'm always going to do it my way. But because I'm genuinely interested in the conversation that you, like a little bitch, ran away from, I'm going to stop talking now and let you talk to Jimmy. Enjoy.
I'm writing up. I'm taking notes here, Brian. Your list of things you won't tolerate. If you don't mind, go ahead. What was number one? No swearing?
Well, I think, telling me to shut up and cutting me off before actually hearing a...
Okay, don't tell you to shut up.
That's a big thing.
Is that number two? Now, am I not allowed to swear at all, or I'm only not allowed to swear at you?
Yeah, don't swear at me. You can swear like in the meta.
So an example of what I shouldn't do is say, shut the fuck up, Brian. You sound like a fucking idiot right now, and calling into another show and trying to set the tone of their thing is like really fucking stupid. That would be an example of the thing not to say.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Would another example be like, to tell you the truth, you seem like a little fucking bitch. I'm not enjoying myself, nor do I see the value in this call. Maybe you should just shut the fuck up. Would that be another example of a thing I shouldn't say?
Right. Yep. That would be another one.
What was rule number three? What was rule number three?
I don't have rules. We're pretty much there. I think you get the idea.
Okay, great. Brian, are you black?
So I'm not going to tell you my race.
Oh, sorry. This is our show. So you either participate in our questions, or this isn't like an open mic. I also don't want to hear your type 5. So my question is, am I a white person discussing whether or not a black person's interests are better served by the Republicans or Democrats? Am I having that discussion with a white person or a black person or something else if you like? You don't have to send me your 23andMe, though I'd like it. Not that I couldn't make some predictions. So, Brian, my question for you, in fact, since you've got a list of things you won't tolerate, here's my list of things I won't tolerate. You not answering questions because you don't think they're relevant, because what you think is relevant doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
So, Brian, once again, are you white?
You're welcome to hang up on me.
Are you white?
You're welcome to hang up on me.
Why is that question so scary to answer?
Do you want to hear the answer?
Yeah, I want to hear why that question is scary for you to answer.
It's not that it's scary. It's that I think when you involve race, it takes away the merits of the argument. And I think saying that someone can or cannot speak about a specific topic because they belong to a specific sectionality, I think is where Democrats went wrong. And I think
okay, great, Brian. No. You're now trying to pull it into a different point about politics. I'm not a Democrat, so that shit doesn't mean anything.
After you.
Now, Brian, I'm going to respond to you and say that's why you don't want to answer the question. Here's why I do want you to answer the question, because this country has a history with black people, and it is this: we talk about them without them. And I'd like to know if that's what we're doing right now, because otherwise, it's three white dudes circle jerking about what they think is best for black people. A conversation I'm not even saying I'm necessarily going to end, because there's also another consideration, and that is that there's lots of data to back up that if you are a white person who has some attitudes about black people, I have a better chance of getting through to you and potentially changing your mind simply because I am white. And these are things that make it relevant. So regardless of, I would love for all of these things to exist on their own surface, I'd love to be getting blown right now. But at the present, we live in the reality we are in. And the fact of the matter is, when these conversations happen, there are relevant reasons to ask an interlocutor what their race is. And my dick is dry. These are both facts.
I appreciate your candor. You are welcome to hang up on me. I think you're a racist.
You think I'm a racist?
To see, you could be. I don't know you personally, but that is a racist position that you're taking for sure.
I don't think it is, and I think I just explained why it isn't, Brian. In fact, I could argue, if we're going to be equally pedantic back, that you're wanting to avoid making sure that the representation of this conversation is accounted for. And whether or not, again, are we having a conversation about them without them? Will a black person, when they tune in, excuse me, Brian, will a black person, when they tune into this episode and they watch this show, presumably some of them are in live chat right now, be able to say, at least there's somebody there who I can say knows what the experience day to day of my life is like, and I can have a level of trust that they're gonna be able to represent that. Right now, they know they're not getting it from me. How could I know what it is like to be a black person? And so I think it is fair for the audience to know, are we having a hypothetical conversation as a couple of white guys? Or are we having a conversation about people with somebody representing that they can at least say they come from that community?
I don't think we're seeing the world the same way. You can definitely hang up on me, but I'm not going to have a conversation through the lens of
Brian,
race.
you don't have to keep telling me that I can hang up on you. Nothing I have ever done in my career has shown that I don't know I have that option.
Okay.
Well,
I don't think it. I think someone who.
Hey, Brian, if I asked you to enter, if I asked you to take your shoes off in my house, would you say, yes, I'm in your house, therefore I will? Or would you go off on a thing about why you don't think that's necessary, blah, 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 blah? Is that what would happen?
No, I would take my shoes off because that's a commonly respected.
Right. You are in my house right now, Brian. And if you're right and what I am doing is racist, engage with my racism. Expose me as a racist, and let's continue on the conversation. But I think you know that people will come to the conclusion that if you do admit that you are white, or whatever you are, and our conversation continues, that it won't expose me as a racist, and that in fact, it may contextualize where some of the statements you're going to make about pulling up by the bootstraps, about the bigotry of low expectations, what cultural center that more likely came from. I think that's what you're worried about, Brian.
I think that's your concern. Your concern
And don't
is
come
that,
to my house if you won't take off the shoes, Brian.
You're welcome to hang up. Feel free.
No, I'm going to make you hold forever since you're trying to keep telling me. So we'll just return you to the queue. And now you're welcome to hang up. Maybe we'll take you later. Maybe we won't. But you're welcome to hang up on us anytime you want, Brian. But you're in my fucking house. You're in Matt's house in my neighborhood. Get the fuck out of here. You don't get to set the rules. And to be clear, Brian hung up.
God fucking damn it. I should have never agreed to that shit.
Did I say things that made you want to?
I sent you a message in every possible social media. I sent you a message in Zoom, in Facebook, in everything. All I want to know is, I don't give a shit whether Brian's white, black, brown, whatever. Does Brian think that there are systemic advantages for people tied to race currently? That's a yes or no question. And if Brian doesn't think that there are such advantages, then that demonstrates that Brian doesn't sufficiently understand the model and is objecting to, or the current reality, and is objecting to something and denying that a problem exists. But if Brian recognizes that there are systemic advantages tied to race currently, does he think pretending or acting as if those advantages don't exist will solve that problem? Because that's what he's advocating, is that either there is a problem and we should ignore it because we shouldn't consider race, because if we consider race at all, even to recognize the problem, that makes us racist.
Yeah.
Or there's not a problem, in which case he is sitting here just denying both the data and the lived experiences of people. There's a reason why driving while black is a phrase and driving while white is not.
Right. I mean, I would have probably had to then go, Brian, I'm done with you. Matt has questions if you want him back. Because on my end, this man came in and told us what his rules for the call was, and I was not going to let him bypass. So you want us to respect your rules, but you're not going to respect ours. I just call it a pride issue. I wouldn't have been able to get past it. But it is, I understand those things you bring up. And the interesting, I think Javon is the one who I always hear the stat about. During the daytime, black people are pulled over disproportionately more than white people. And at night, that number goes down and they're pulled over at the same rate. Why is that? Why does that happen, people? Why does that happen?
The same reason that when people submit their resume and it says, I'll go with, well, if you have an Indian sounding name, a foreign sounding name, a black sounding name, if your resume says Steve or LaShonda or Gukesh, in any of those things, that's going to get you perceived differently. That is a fundamental recognition about who we are. And while I would love to live in the imaginary world that Brian thinks we can reach without doing anything about it, seemingly, where those sorts of things are never factors, that's not the reality I live in. The reality I live in is that by virtue of me being a white, middle-class, able-bodied, above-average intelligent man in the United States in 2025, I have a number of different categories that play to my advantage. It doesn't make it my fault. It doesn't mean that it's something I need to apologize for. This is something I talked about with Mandisa on Monday. Mandisa was doing Black Non-Believers fundraiser. I came on as the last thing, and I said a bunch of different stuff. Hopefully, all of it was taken in the spirit that was intended. But Mandisa was talking about you need to spend your privilege. And so, if we're trying to I don't know, climb a mountain. And I was given better climbing gear than the person below me. And I got to start earlier. It's in my best interest and their best interest, because this isn't a race and a zero-sum thing. It's in my best interest to take the fact that I'm in a higher advantage position to help the people who want assistance. If somebody's like, nope, I got it, cool. and to be aware that if I managed to get to the top first, that it wasn't because I did better necessarily. It might be. This is the thing about privilege. It's like, having a boost up, having a head start, all of these things. And we've tried all the different language things like that. It would be great if we were in a truly post-racial, post-gendered world. We're not, and I don't think we ever will be. My friend Tony Penn, who is a professor on this, and a black man and a former child preacher, taught me very early on and continues to teach others, stop saying you don't see race. Oh, I don't see race. Oh, I don't see race. That is an expression of your monumental privilege that you are allowed to put yourself in a position where that's something you don't have to care about, and then you get to pretend that other people are wrong to care about it. You have to spend that privilege, not apologize for it. I don't have to jump off the mountain and start over. This is the thing that I'm trying to get to with guys like Brian. And Brian's like, oh, can we have a civil conversation? Yeah, we can, as long as you don't march in saying, oh, you can't do this and you can't do this, and I'm not going to answer this question. Jimmy was dead on. It's bad enough that, why do so many podcast hosts, why do so many talking heads on YouTube, why do so many more talking heads on YouTube look like me and Jimmy than Brady or Jovan or Mandisa? Why is that? Are we just really that much better at it? Because I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that is remotely. By the way, Brady, if you're watching, give us a call and let us know, from somebody who is black, are Republicans actually better for black people right now? Because I don't want to pretend to know. Somebody message Brady, get him on. Anyway.
Do we say it right or do we say it white? That's how you become a creator. That's how you, especially a podcaster. By the way, guys, I hate cancel culture. Joe Rogan deal, please. Can I come on now? Do I get a spot? Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
Steve is calling for Virginia. Pronouns are he, him. How are we going to fix the damage that's been done? Hey, Steven, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Matt? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Jimmy, Matt, how y'all doing tonight?
It's a mixed bag. How are you doing?
Mild headache.
Mild cold, but I'm living. So, yeah, my question is, since, well, obviously there's been damage done. Well, the damage was done first time around, and that window of time that the opposition party was in charge, they did little to nothing to even repair the damage that was done. And now that this is resurfacing again, there's more damage being done. If, and I guess, and when we get through all this and they're finally out, what do you see as remedies to rectify the damage that has been done this time around?
I don't know. I think the United States is a dead experiment.
Stephen, I don't fully agree with one of the things you said. I wouldn't say that Biden didn't do anything to fix the stuff from the Trump administration. I think the problem was the things he did work on fixing only could get us closer back to status quo when the status quo already fucking sucked. So for example, one of the worst things Donald Trump did was basically make sure a vaccine existed for him and no plan for distribution. Literally, that's one of the first things that when Biden got into office, they found out they weren't even working on a distribution plan, despite the fact that this was his thing, and despite the fact that by then Donald Trump had gotten the vaccine himself. And so they did fix that. and they got a distribution plan, and they distributed the vaccine. Donald Trump set a date for pulling out of Afghanistan. Turns out there was no plan for pulling out of Afghanistan. So in a very short period of time, just a few months, the Biden administration had to figure out that the world was experiencing record levels of inflation. We got ours back under the rest of Europe, NATO, all those places. We got our inflation lower than theirs, but ours was still going up, despite the fact that it was being exacerbated by the reckless tax cuts that Trump did in his first term, because that's one of the benefits of tax cuts. You get short-term gains and the next guy has to deal with it. So Stephen, it's one of those things where it's not that they didn't work on stuff. It's that all we're doing ever is trying to get back to status quo. Even now, when we look at the healthcare industry, nobody's running on Medicare for all. Now people are going back to running on restoring the subsidies that was still paying into a for-profit racket that makes money if you get sick and have the money to spare. All the money that you've earned, you now get to not spend on yourself, your security, your future, any of that kind of stuff. It goes to these guys. And so even when we're talking about now fixing healthcare, they're talking about fixing it back to the status quo and not taking another big step. It's why I can't stand liberals, because liberals put Band-Aids on gushing wounds and then go, I did something and the other guys wanted you to bleed out. The other guys wanted to put bleach in your blood. Okay, sure, we're all dead anyway. So for what we're going to do to fix the damage, it's going to have to be somebody like at least as radical as Imam Dani, with the power to actually do the stuff, with the power to actually go, no more. Let's go ahead and put the healthcare industry out of business. Let's go ahead and make the health insurance industry out of business. Let's go ahead and make healthcare public. Let's go ahead and guarantee housing for everybody, and guarantee water, and guarantee food, guarantee internet, guarantee public transport. If you give everybody the means to make their lives better, they tend to. They want to make their lives better and make their communities better. So it's going to take something like that. It's going to take something big, and it's going to take stuff that might be impossible, which is why I think Matt says he thinks the American experiment is dead, because I don't know if post Citizens United, if Citizens United is reversible, and then even if it is, and with reverse, do you undo the damage, or is it the next country that we hope to get right? And are we always just trying to march towards something? And then with all of that in mind, as we're trying to figure out what to fix, how do we fix the fact that nobody has a job in a couple of decades? How do we fix the fact that we are not innovating how to make our jobs better, but innovating how to make our jobs, our species, obsolete? So that's where I am with it, Stephen. I wish I had more hopeful things to say, but lately I've been more likely to say if Twitter had existed, the Nazis would have won.
So most of what I heard was mostly the economics. I was more referencing the political damage, like the political system itself, like the democratic system. Like
our political system needs a complete overhaul, and I don't see our political system needs a complete overhaul, and I don't see any way to accomplish that unless you vote out every single person who's in there and replace them with people who are willing to overhaul it.
Okay, but like, what set of reforms would you envision would like mitigate a repeat of this entirely? Like, if you are an elected representative of the people, you don't get to own anything in the stock market. Because that's what they all do. It's all. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene went from a few $100,000 net worth, and in the 5 years that she's been in there, she's worth millions, and now gets a permanent pension. I was in the Navy for 8.5 years. I don't even have a permanent pension. And I was, so you shouldn't be able to invest in the stock market, or at least put everything into, a protected account until after you're done there. You shouldn't get to invest in anything that you're in the process of making decisions of. There shouldn't be, no dark money, and term limits.
There shouldn't be career politicians. I'm fine with and encourage actual expertise. I do think lawyers should be involved in making the law because we see what happens when they're not involved in making the laws. You get laws that just get challenged and turn everything into a mess, and everybody's rights are just dependent on who happens, the whim of the person in charge for the day. So those are my beginning thoughts on how to reform it. Jimmy?
Yeah, abolish the Senate, abolish the presidency, reform the Congress, massively expand the Supreme Court, and mandatory voting. If you're wanting the big sexy answers of the things that are so far away from plausible that this is why it probably won't happen in America, there's your big sexy answer. It's not going to happen in America, but that is where that is the foundation upon which you would need to begin, is switching to a more actual representative government. And when it comes to mandatory voting, I actually used to be, now I'm both ways. It's mandatory for the citizens and it's mandatory for the state. The state has to. You can turn in an empty ballot. You don't have to pick, but everybody turns in a ballot. A state is responsible to get a ballot to every individual. Massive ability to vote, like, at least a week of voting, if not more, mail-in voting, all of that kind of shit. Are the things that, if you're talking about purely political reform and not what we want that actual world to look like after, which is far more important, and how you would prevent a Donald Trump, we shouldn't have a president. We should have a prime minister. If not,
so you'd
a
more
council.
for a parliamentary style system.
Correct.
Okay.
There's a reason why America, nobody looks at our representative system and envies it. No one. There is no, even the conservatives in Canada aren't wishing they had a president like we have, aren't wishing that their system represented ours. Nobody across the world, across the democratic world, looks at the American representative system, quote unquote, and goes, that one's good. And the fact that right now we have a system where the elected officials choose their voters instead of the voters choosing their elected officials, I would argue you can't even really call it a democracy here.
Yeah. So have you ever heard of Maxwell Stearns by any chance?
Maxwell Stems? I'm bad with names until I look up.
Maxwell Stearns.
It sounds familiar, but I'm really bad at names. Like, I couldn't tell you the authors of the books I'm reading right now.
So he wrote a book called Parliamentary America, at least radical means of radically returning our broken democracy, and that's the model he proposed to prepare to basically fix our system. He proposed 3 amendments to be added to the Constitution. The first is electing. So you'd be the first amendment for reform would be electing your representative official geographically, and then the second ballot for representing the party representation within
party and power.
In Congress. And the second would be basically whoever will be president and vice president will be.
Can I be really rude for a second, Stephen?
Sure.
I don't give a fuck. Americans are too stupid. They're not going to read. Even if this guy makes a brilliant, compelling case for what exactly needs to take place to change the United States, pointing people to a book isn't going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. It might be a great book. I'm not knocking him. I might wind up agreeing with him. I could read it and maybe completely change my mind, learn all kinds of stuff, everything else. It isn't going to fix America. They're fucking useless because Americans can't read, don't care. This is going to take something more, and hopefully by the people who maybe have read that book or other books.
Yeah. Where's Maxwell's series of TikToks on the matter? That's much more likely to be effective.
I know that's sharp and cynical, but it's born not only of frustration, but of what I think is actually true.
Yeah, it was barely cynical. Not cynical. Yeah, I read it as satirical. Steven, I kind of feel the same way as Matt here, honestly. It's why I didn't go, when you first asked the question, it's why I told you what society needs to look like differently, not those breakdowns. And I think we have a caller we're champing at the bit to get to.
Okay. Well, at least I tried. But thanks for entertaining my ideas, despite your steps to the system. But anyway.
I have that page pulled up on Amazon, and I have added that to my reading list. But yeah, it's when I haven't read it. And I know how people generally do with books. Yeah, I'm just kind of like, that's not going to do it. But I appreciate the recommendation, and I will look into it. Thanks, Stephen.
All right. Cool. That's no problem, Matt. Sure.
It's frustrating. I used to recommend books. I did videos recommending books.
Yeah. It's probably good for like other types of shows, just not at this one.
Maybe somebody in chat pointed out, Tim read the same study we did and came to a different position. People watched the actual shooting the other day with their own eyes and come to different conclusions. So I don't know what a book's going to do, but
to be fair, Tim didn't read the study.
Well, he was trying to while he was answering questions, and he's not good at multitasking.
But the podcast he heard about that study, he was very upset by.
Ty is calling from Texas. Pronouns are him. What systems are in place that are suppressing Black people? Hey, Ty, how are you?
I am doing fine, Matt. How are you? And before you answer, I just want to say it's an honor. I appreciate being able to talk to you. And Jimmy, how are you as well?
Well, apparently bad, because it's apparently not an honor when it's me. Just kidding.
I kind of watch, I don't watch this show very often, but I mostly watch The Atheist Experience because that show really helped me getting out of Christianity.
You should stop doing that.
So I don't really know. What's that?
It's all
you
good,
should
Ty.
Stop doing that. That organization are a bunch of fucking liars that stole 18 years of my emails or locked me out of them.
Ty, it's all good. The only difference between you and I is
I don't know what the drama is with The Atheist Experience, but
you didn't wonder why I hadn't been on there in like 5 years.
Well, I did, but I just thought
you didn't care enough. Okay, cool.
I really didn't know. No, I don't have time to get into the politics of everything, but I really do appreciate you guys and what you do.
Cool. So the question is, what systems are in place that are suppressing Black people? And I'm going to give a summary because I think the question is great, but also represents some common confusion. So it's not necessarily, there are some, but it's not necessarily that we have codified explicitly hang on. It's not that we have explicitly codified the suppression of anybody. Well, to some extent we did at different times, like women weren't allowed to vote and blacks were 3/5 and boo, boo, boo. It's not that the problem is not that the suppression is explicitly codified. And sometimes it's even explicitly condemned, but the condemnation and protection are not enforced. So if you have an accent, that's probably cause that you're here illegally and they can just detain you. We watched ICE do that the other day. There are hiring practices. Who gets arrested, who gets invited for an interview, who gets pulled over at various times of day. The example that Jovan had previously used. Mandatory minimums for sentencing for drugs and crimes that are more likely prevalent in specific communities. There was a period of time crack cocaine was more prevalent in Black communities while regular cocaine, which is the same thing, was more prevalent in white communities, and there were mandatory minimums in one and not in the other. And that led to incarceration, which increased a poverty cycle. There are specific laws that are not explicitly like, ooh, we're going to specifically target these groups to suppress their vote. They don't say that, but the voter suppression laws have the effect of specifically suppressing the vote for specific groups. And this goes down to specific districting, gerrymandering, and whether it was done intentionally or unintentionally, it still diminishes the relative value of Black votes, brown votes, etc. And it's because the people who are in charge have more motivation to protect themselves and the folks like them, and they are more likely to see injustice that would directly impact them, and they are more likely to act to change injustice that would impact them than they are for injustices that impact others. And incrementally, this adds up to a system where there's a disadvantaged class, either through direct hatred or bigotry, or an apathy or systemic blindness to recognizing it and wanting to fix it. And what will often happen is the racism of lowered expectations, and also pointing to things like, well, you know, Beyonce is the first Black woman billionaire, so ain't no more racism in the United States. And hey, we had our first Black president, which means ain't no more racism in the United States. That sort of mentality, and what Brian was doing of we shouldn't consider race, amplifies the problem by pretending it's not there. And so it chips away a little bit at any hope someone has of gaining true equality.
I have some answers, Ty. Before I do, are you aware of any? I'm trying to gauge where you are on this. Are you just curious, like what the things are? You wanted to hear like a put together list, or are you under the impression that in America there aren't systems in places that are suppressing Black people?
Well, I wouldn't say that there aren't. I can't think of any that come immediately to mind.
Okay.
I don't know about a list. If you think you could make a list,
what was let's talk about it, right? Ty, what was redlining before?
Yeah, I was going to mention, you guys are probably way more versed in like politics and stuff than I am. I don't know what that is.
Okay, Ty, that was not meant to be a trick question. Ty, you don't even know what historical, like things no one disagrees with, existed. So this is like one of those things where it's kind of like, I don't think you're calling in because you're opposed to the idea that they exist, but I guess you want us to educate you on what they are.
You're calling in what?
Because I'm Black, and I just don't see the same thing that you're talking about. But I mean, I don't know what a red line is, but you know, I've heard all of the experiences that my family members have had and things like that they tell me. I didn't.
So basically, redlining was Ty. Redlining was where banks would on a map put a red line around Black neighborhoods, and those were the neighborhoods they didn't loan to. Is this strike like reminding you of anything? Like, well, have you heard about this?
Why were those neighborhoods Black neighborhoods?
Ty, I'm not falling for this. I don't even know what to do here at this point. You are asking me to give you the most basic education on the history of racism in America and how slavery then led to, you know, obviously the slaves are freed, and then we get Jim Crow laws after the fact. And now I need to educate you how they have that poverty has been targeted at Black people, and that we have had laws that kept the people in poverty. And I think at this point, Ty, if you're engaging in good faith, I'm not comfortable being the one to do that. Call back with Javon and talk to, because at this point, the optics of me, a white person, educating a Black person on the history of racism in America is not something I'm interested in putting out there.
And I get that, but let me ask a couple quick questions. Ty, was slavery racist in the United States?
Of course it was.
Cool. Did it result in, when we abolished slavery, did everything become equal immediately?
I couldn't imagine that it even could have.
Has it ever become truly equal, or are people still in a disadvantaged position because of years of bigotry and systemic racism?
Now, that would be the question where I would need to have more education on the history of slavery and race dynamics. In America.
It's
I couldn't answer that in good faith. I couldn't.
Okay, that's cool. It's wild to me that you don't. I mean, Jimmy was just talking about how they used to basically, it determined whether or not you were going to get a loan and whether or not you were going to be given a loan in a particular neighborhood. We want to keep this neighborhood white only. And since we can't discriminate expressly, we will discriminate under the table, which is we will make sure that the only people who are getting into this neighborhood are the ones we want. So we'll give you a loan for this neighborhood in this house and keep you in this area. Did you think that, like, if you go into major cities, there's different areas where this area has a higher than average representation of white people. This area has a higher representation of black people. This area has a higher representation of Hispanic people. Did you think that was just because they wanted to hang out with each other and exclude people? And that do you not recognize that there's also income disparity between those?
Well, of course I recognize that, and I also recognize
why
that,
would there be income? Why would there be income disparity between, let's say, a predominantly black neighborhood and a predominantly white neighborhood? Why would that be?
Because the people that live in those places are poor. That's why. But I mean,
no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ty. I'm sorry. That's the same thing. I'm saying, why is the poor neighborhood predominantly black in a certain area? Is it because they're inferior?
There's poor Asian neighborhoods. There's poor white neighborhoods. There's poor,
no.
Even if you go into the dichotomy of Hispanics, there's poor Puerto Rican.
I'm gonna bring up one statistic, but then I'd really think we should move on because I don't think Ty is here to engage in good faith. Ty, if you adjust, if you have two applicants,
Ty, stop talking. Ty, stop talking. Let Jimmy talk.
If you have two applicants with the same credit score, income, and credit history, is the black person or the white person more likely to be approved for a mortgage?
I'm black and I have a mortgage.
I'm sorry, that was not the question, Ty.
Ty, you're dishonest as fuck and an embarrassment to the black community, and I don't mind saying it. And because we asked a really straightforward question.
You're the person who...
I'm going to mute you. You're going to listen. Pay attention. We asked a really straightforward question designed to fill in the gaps on your admitted lack of understanding of the realities of race relations and discrimination in the United States, which is really weird. And Jimmy's right. It's really wild to have a couple white dudes explaining this. But when Jimmy asks a question about, are you more likely to get a mortgage or not? And your answer is, I got a mortgage. Congratulations. As we pointed out earlier, when we talked about privilege, nobody has to apologize for their privilege or make up for their privilege. You should be spending that. But the fact that you as an individual haven't suffered what others do doesn't mean that others aren't suffering. And I'd like to congratulate you on being a part of the black community that is sufficiently privileged that you don't give a fuck to actually investigate what other people are going through or the history of what other people have gone through. I mean, you are exceptional because you have managed to not see what's going on. And because it didn't impact you, you get to pretend when you're asked a question that you only were asked about yourself. Jimmy didn't ask you if you had a mortgage, didn't ask if you'd been admitted to college, didn't ask if you had been called back for interviews. And yet that's how you answered. Does it, I'm going to ask you this, Ty.
Oh, can I finish out the point since he took it and lied about it?
I guess.
Because Ty said probably the one with the higher score. The question was specifically if you have two candidates with the same score, same income, and same credit history. Literally, I accounted for that. He said probably the one with the higher score. But our recent data shows with the exact same candidate, you are more than twice as likely to be denied a loan if you are black. If the only difference between you and another candidate is that you are black, you are more than twice as likely. This is why I brought up redlining before, because this is now what is considered contemporary redlining. If you hear about modern redlining, this is what they are referring to, or they're referring to reverse redlining, which is that banks and institutions can open up wherever they want. So they will specifically still avoid black heavy neighborhoods. So now they don't have to deny anything because they're not getting walk-in traffic from the black neighborhoods in the first place. Those are the modern redlining that exist right now today. And Ty's answer when presented that was, I've gotten a mortgage, but probably the guy with the higher score. It was a very, very, either he didn't listen or he purposefully was dishonest in response.
So The question I have, Ty, does it bother you that because you think you haven't been as impacted by systemic racism, that you blissfully seem to ignore its impact on others? And even when you're asked a question that isn't specifically about you, but is about it generally, you decide to, instead of saying, I don't know, just answer on behalf of yourself. Does that sort of focus on just you? Does it bother you that you might be ignoring the plights of others? Or is that just something you don't care about?
I care very deeply. And I wonder why you assume that I haven't been impacted by racism. And I also wonder what you call systemic racism. What is that?
Oh, okay. It bothers you very deeply because you care very deeply, but you haven't bothered to learn anything about the history. You didn't know what the red line stuff was. When asked a question about what the actual statistics are, you just went to you personally. And I wasn't saying that you weren't impacted by racism. I was saying that evidently you are sufficiently privileged that you are absolutely oblivious to systemic racism, because even right now, you just said you don't know what I mean by systemic racism when I went through a checklist of systemic racism, that it isn't expressly codified to be racist to this group, but it isn't corrected when systems like mandatory minimums, like red line laws, which were expressly, where voter suppression makes the black vote worth less in some areas. I went through and described systemic racism are policies and procedures within a system that unfairly advantage or disadvantage groups based on race. That's what systemic racism is. It isn't a codified thing saying, hey, let's destroy black people. Hey, let's make things harder for black people. It can be. Hey, let's make things harder for women. When you say you genuinely care about this, and you do not know what systemic racism is, even after I went through a checklist describing it and explaining how it happens, and that it doesn't have to be intentionally nefarious, but could just be oblivious, you're like, oh, how dare you think that I wasn't impacted by racism? That wasn't my position. What I'm saying is, here, what's the most racist thing that's ever happened to you, Ty?
I didn't mean to come across like, oh, I'm so offended.
I'm sorry. What's the most racist thing that's ever happened to you, Ty?
I would rather not comment on that, but I will say it was probably done to me by a black person.
Cool. Anybody else you want to shit on before we hang up?
I'm done. You can call Javon.
How did I shit on anyone?
Goodbye.
Couple more things in case somebody's thinking about calling in to be educated. You are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth if you are a black woman. You are 2 times more likely to die if you are a black infant than a white infant. White people in both of those are under the national average, and black people are disproportionately above the national average. So our healthcare system would be one of the first places I would address. And one of the biggest things we could do, like Medicare for All, to address systemic racism is equitable healthcare.
I mean, it's just wild to me, because if you look at stats like that, if you're 3 times more likely to die, does that just mean that black women are physically weak? Are they actually at a greater risk? And by the way, even if they were, wouldn't it be incumbent upon a civil society to take steps to make sure that we're addressing those differences? It is strange to me that, we just had that call. It's like, hey, what's systemic racism? Oh, it's this and this and this and this. Well, I'm lost. Like, I need a reality check. I'm going to send a link to this short to, I don't know, Brady, Mandisa, Jovan. Let's get folks in who know more about this than any of the three of us, and find out what's going on with Ty, that he thinks he cares about racism, but is oblivious to systemic racism even after it's described and explained. That's what I don't get.
Yeah, there's, from the onset of, I don't know what redlining is, at a certain point, it would be like taking him at his word. If a Jew told me he didn't know what the Holocaust was, I'd be like, I don't think I'm the guy to explain it to you.
Yeah, it reminds me. So Chris Rock had a bit that he did early on in his career that was incredibly popular with my white friends. It was when he said, "Ain't nobody more racist than an old black man." And if you listen to the whole bit, he's talking about, the sort of I hate whitey stuff and the justification for it. Well, my white friends didn't hear it that way. What they heard, black people are the racist ones. Ain't nobody more racist than an old black man. Chris Rock. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming Chris. But it is really wild to me that I would be talking to someone who seems to have taken that line. There was somebody else the other day, because Candace Owens has lost her mind, and thinks that Charlie Kirk is a time traveler being held prisoner by a demon. And in posting about this, somebody came on my Facebook page and was like, I think Candace Owens thinks she's white. And I was like, how the fuck is that relevant to any of this? I don't know. Am I wrong?
That's a very, very racist thing to say also.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's wild. That's wild. I'm going to step away to pee.
Yep. I'm going to take Robert in North Carolina. Pronouns are him. Robert's an atheist who wants to talk about the Constitution being replaced. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing?
Well, Jimmy has to go to the restroom, and you're going to be the last caller for tonight's show before we get to super chats. So I'm doing better.
Oh boy!
Baffled by the last call and the others.
Well, I appreciate you welcoming me into your house, and I will do my best to respect it.
Sweet.
In fact, I was appreciating the serendipity of someone calling in earlier and talking about the same subject, and I'm like, well, this is pretty good.
Yeah. I'll warn you, Robert, and
yes,
don't take anything that I say that's harsh about the subject as a personal thing, because quite frankly, I'm so frustrated with the state of affairs in the country that I live in, that all of the discussions about, and I'm happy for you to make your point, all the discussions about what we need to do to fix it and how we need a new constitution or a new form of government, or we should do this or we should do this, every single one of them that is high in the sky, here's an ideal system, here's an improved system, that are all absolutely impractical, delusional, impossible to implement in a fascist control world without there being violent revolution first, is to me like, I'd rather discuss which superheroes are probably gonna be in the void in doomsday. But I only say that so you know where my head is right now. But what was your point?
I got you. And I'll do my best and not take it personally. I believe it was Jimmy earlier who was saying making some suggestions about getting rid of the Senate and getting rid of the presidency, and having a prime minister. And I do agree with that. I think about the bicephalic nature of the presidency, which is that he's the head of, I say he, he's the head of state and the head of government. He's two heads, and that should be split into a prime minister, a chancellor, something like that, and also maybe a president.
I'd stay away
or
from
maybe,
chancellor.
Okay. Maybe a single president, or maybe what's called a collective head of state, where there's like a little board of, like a Supreme Court sized group of people, 6, 9, something like that, people.
6, 7.
Yeah. Oh man, we went there. But now the Gen Alphas are tuning in, right? No, I'm kidding. Okay. And changing how members of the House are elected so that gerrymandering becomes either impossible or extremely difficult. Maybe adding members to the Senate so that there are some countries like Mexico where a portion of the Senate they're like elected at large, so they're elected like by the entire country, similar to how the president is here. Without the electoral college, take that out. But anyway, change how members of the Supreme Court are appointed. Maybe a system like what South Korea does, where different bodies appoint Supreme Court justices. Like what they do over there is that the president gets to appoint a third, and a lower court gets to appoint a third, and the legislature gets to appoint a third, and so it's a different system and avoids any kind of shenanigans, as CGP Gray would put it, Supreme Court shenanigans in terms of appointment. What are your thoughts on that to start off with?
I don't play fantasy football.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of like, what are we doing here through all of this? I was like, are we all writing our post-America fiction novel of like, and then we'll distribute.
This is 100% the thing that I have zero interest in ever discussing.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
What do we disagree on? Can we fight about something? Because Robert, you're probably super nice, but I hate this call.
Okay, I appreciate that. What can we fight on?
Systems exist that keep black people down, right?
At the moment, it seems like the argument is what's the course of action to make the country better, and I think that this is a good course of action. I completely acknowledge it's going to take
what
several
course of
decades
action? Robert, you didn't offer any course of action. You just rattled off what a whole bunch of other countries did, and that we might be able to do. I didn't even bother to follow it or pay any attention. So can you explain why I should give a fuck what other countries do if I have no way of implementing it, even if it's right?
I think about the scientific process of taking in data and looking at how the process has look at what has worked and what has not worked, and improving upon that process. I think it's my understanding that's what other countries do.
The thing you're proposing, would it engage a democratic method of changing, or would it first be like a violent revolution and then the change?
The first one, for sure. Democratic method.
So we're back to the question I asked, which is, why should I give a fuck how other places do it if I don't have any way of actually implementing it?
I believe that a constitutional amendment could be passed, hypothetically.
Really? You think that this country has a realistic chance of passing a constitutional amendment that in any way takes power away from the Project 2025 Christian nationalist fascists?
Right now? No.
When will it happen?
I don't know.
Is it likely to ever happen?
if no effort is put into it, no.
What effort should be put into it that hasn't put into it in attempting to stop MAGA the last 3 elections? Go play fantasy football somewhere else with somebody else's country. I got real shit to try to address.
What president you primarying for in 2028?
What person should run for the presidency in 2028 and get the Democratic primary? Is that what you're asking?
Who do you plan to vote for in the
Democratic
primary?
I'm not a Democrat.
That's probably the only.
Sure.
Who do you plan on? Who are you planning to vote for in the Democratic primary in 2028?
If she ran, I would maybe vote for AOC, but I also appreciate that she's probably not ready yet.
I probably would too. And you know what I would do as I primaried for AOC? You know what I would do? I'd vote and I go, you know what's not going to happen? She become president. We are not even close to electing the president that you think should be president, let alone. And the DNC is not going to take a shot on another woman of color. Are you kidding? We're 20 years away from the next time now.
Yeah, we the house is on fire, and you're calling to tell me what TV and paint color we should put in the new house. That's not a plan of action.
That's a good metaphor. Anyway, Robert, you're probably super nice. This is like...
No, this is why I warned him ahead of time. Please don't take this personally.
Yeah,
this is the type of shit I hate.
To be completely fair, you absolutely did.
Yeah.
So thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. We're going to move on to Super Chats.
Okay, I'm a big fan of you guys. Thank you for at least talking to me. And have
absolutely. And your decoration plans may be wonderful. We got to put out the fire and rebuild the house first. And I don't see the plan for that. 40 inches is not a big screen. Whoever said 40-inch big screen? That's not a big screen.
They haven't seen the 86er on my wall, which is weird because it used to be behind me. Somebody thought because I had a green halo, and I can do it again, that this confirmed it's a green screen. These lights are colored. So as you can see, they reflect off of the desk back there. It is not, I'm afraid. But anyway, the lights, they're real lights. I'm working on a set. Also, so people will...
4 lights.
So people will shut up about it, and maybe so people can respond to other people in the comments. If you're seeing me eat on a show, I'm aware it's rude. I have to eat something with sodium in it when I get brain fog. It's part of my shit. So just shut the fuck up. I mute the mic every time. Yet,
but it will be.
Shut the fuck. Yeah, that's true. Well, they all got to see me drink my poop forming drink. I took 8 milligrams I added 8 milligrams of cholestyramine to my water bottle a second ago, and it did not go down well. A glob, I think, stuck to my uvula at first. Horrible.
We don't hear about uvulas often enough, but
that's true.
I think we're good there.
I like that they sound sexy.
Super chats, but so my apologies. Arden, would you like to give the announcements for the current upcoming schedule? Because I didn't see it.
Sure.
I know you did earlier. But...
Also, while I'm here, we're going to read Super Chats, $5 or more. Send in your Super Chats, and we will read them live. Also, hit like. It is free and helps the algorithm and the channel massively. So go ahead and hit like on this video if you had a good time watching Tim and Brian get spanked live on air. All right, shows tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Time on TACIS is going to be Josie Caballero and Dr. Ben. This Sunday, for the Sunday show at 1 p.m. Central Time will be Seth Andrews and Erica Gutzik-Gibbon. After Dark will be Forrest Valkai and Shannon Q at 7 p.m. Aaron Adair and Erica Gutzik-Gibbon will be back on Monday for Skeptalk at 6 p.m. Alyssa and Taylor, Skeptical Heretic for Chewed Gum. And then next Wednesday, right back here on the Hangout, Javon Bradley will be joining Matt.
Sweet.
I'm looking forward to where he came from tomorrow.
I want to get every one of those individuals who asked questions about systemic racism or how the Republicans are better for every single one of you should call back in next week when Javon's here.
Yeah.
And just say, I don't want to talk to Matt. I want to talk to somebody that knows. And boom. If you think I won't sit here and happily listen to Jovan school people, you probably haven't watched me in many years.
People said my mic. Can you guys hear me okay? My levels do look quiet, actually, now that I'm looking on the board. You might be hearing me through Zoom. That might be why.
You sound wonderful to us.
Why are my levels so low? Let me turn this up a little. Chat, let me know if that's any better. Hello, testing. Okay, you can do your thing now.
Sweet. $20 from Greg Markowski. Thanks, Jimmy. Go fuck yourself. Matt, you're gay, homie. And everything at the line for making this last insane year a little more sane. I'm going to say everything at everyone. There we go.
Everything at the line is good, though. I think I might be the thing. The Atheist Mechanic says 1 year into this shit show of an administration, potentially a civil war and World War III on the horizon, allegedly. What a time to be alive. Stay safe, friends. Dude, did you say you didn't see his letter to the Prime Minister of Norway? Did I ask you that or someone else earlier?
You did not ask me that because I shared it and corrected people who were like, well, you know, it wasn't on that letterhead. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you going to complain about the font next? Somebody put it in a format where it's an official message from the President of the United States. I don't care if it was in a text, on letterhead, whatever. Is it accurate? Oh, well, yeah, but it didn't look like that. Why? This is like complaining about the font. I'm so annoyed at people. I'm as pedantic and eager to correct misinformation that is problematic as anybody, but that was some grade A level dumb shit to be like, you know, it wasn't actually on a piece of paper like that. It was a text message. Go the fuck away.
I give two shits also. Literally, like, the man almost started war with North Korea in his first term on Twitter. So let's not pretend that it doesn't have impact just because it's not on the letterhead.
Yeah. $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. 1 year. Oh, yes, you just read that. Potentially civil war and World War III on the horizon. Allegedly, what a time to be alive. Stay safe, friends. Yes, you read that. I will read the follow-up from Atheist Mechanic. I sincerely hope that other nations realize that not everyone here in the States do not support this fascist nonsense. Those of us whom aren't a smooth brain shell of a human are against all this. I think the overwhelming majority of nations that we tend to deal with, you know, when we're talking about NATO, UN, you know, our normal allies, they get it and they understand. Yeah. But the thing is, we live in a country that hasn't always treated other nations as if they're that way. I mean, we've tried. We don't just necessarily assume that everybody in some place is bad, but mostly the United States doesn't care how many people are in the bad. They just care how many people they have to kill or kidnap in order to get the oil.
Base Airline says if Trump dies in office, will Vance be equally terrible or worse as president? As a human being, he is ideologically probably worse because he's more in line with Stephen Miller. As a president, he is probably not as he's not the follow-up cult leader. He's not. He can't mobilize the way Trump could mobilize.
I hate to use. Is there another word other than Riz? he does not have the capacity to command fools to suck up to him the way Trump does.
Might have just used the full form of the word Riz. Might have just gone with charisma.
I'm not even convinced it is.
It became
charisma.
Popular knowledge that he fucks couches. I think we all realize that he is a complete loser.
And remind you that is a fact.
I mean, Trump's Epstein's best friend. Their supposed P tapes. You know. Yeah, I'd rather have somebody fucks a couch than. Anyway.
They won't even care if the couch is underage at this point. Ty says, I can't call, but I really want to know what systems. Oh, this was the guy who called. To keep minorities down. As a minority, I want to know because I can speak to a kind of black privilege that seems more rewarded socially. What systems? I don't see one. The call speaks for itself.
For those who are only seeing the super chats, we spoke to Ty.
Yeah. It's wild, too, because Ty, you don't know a single black woman, because literally it's not just that black people broadly have systems against them. Black women actually are oppressed quite a bit more than black men too. So if you had a fucked up ranking system, the lowest rung in society in America is trans black women, followed by cis black women. Like there are literally trans white people are treated better in a lot of places and in a lot of ways than black women are, than cis black women are. So it's just fucking bizarre that like you really, but then again, he was the guy who said, but I got a mortgage.
Yeah.
So how are you asking us about the experiences of people other than you and rebutting it with your own experience? I'll be thinking about that one all night.
Here's $5 just because what the actual fuck is wrong with Brian's brain.
Hi, Meg.
Thank you very much.
Let Luthien know if you want to get on our 7 Days to Die server. Dante says, not anybody else. Meg can do that. Meg is Luthien's friend. It's the economy, stupid. But is it? Conservatives have voted against their own financial interests for decades. Republicans consistently wreck the economy, and then Democrats come in and repair it. Any commentary?
I agree.
Repair it to the, I would give, I'm not going to waste time again. Repair it or restore it to the status quo, which was also bad.
Yeah. I mean, we did have a balanced budget at one point, which was nice, but.
Yeah, but that was the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, economic inequality.
But I'm just saying, Clinton balanced the budget. You know, that's something.
Yeah.
That's more than restoring it. That's genuinely fixing something. Ignore all the other shit he did. From the this is you.
I hate this from the Atheist Mechanic. I hate that Trump has the nickname of Taco. I enjoy tacos. Trump, not all. For people who don't know, Taco is apparently has been given it to him as a nickname among world leaders who I imagine have a private WhatsApp chat where they're all roasting him. And Taco stands for Trump always cowers out. Chickens out? One of the two.
I think it's chickens, but they're both work. Here's the thing. He's already done that on Greenland.
Yeah.
After threatening tariffs, he just announced today that evidently he's got a possible, probably, maybe good deal on Greenland, and so he's going to back off of his tariffs.
Which means nothing actually happened, but except for that the stock market took a huge dip, so now he has to pretend we're going in the right way, like how he kept lying about all the deals he was getting for the tariffs. He has to pretend so we can cover the fact that he is, once again, chickening out. I'm so glad he is. But it is what he's doing.
Please don't notice that I made a terrible mistake. I'll just pretend that I fixed it by being in charge.
Yeah.
I can't do Trump, but.
Me neither. Misha says, just here to appreciate Mr. Jimothy Snow's excellent hair day. Am I? I came in from, I was working in my wood shop right before this. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy, as always. Thank you. I didn't know.
$10 from Jezebel Godsbane. Thank you, Jezebel. Hi, Matt. I wanted to say that you for being so kind to my wife, Deidre, the other day. Scary world for trans folks. Much love. Hi, also, hi, Jimmy. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Jezebel. I get the reputation of being a dick to so many people that it's nice when I have absolutely good justification for being nice.
I just found out I'm allergic to my deodorant. So that's fun.
That explains so much from the other day.
No, I mean today I'm itching in a way that I'm realizing I'm very sensitive to soaps and stuff, and the way my armpit itches is fully. Yep. So you guys are going to see me keep doing this where I'm pulling the hairs to scratch for some reason. That works. Matt is super kind and nice to people who are not arseholes, just saying. Misha 76. He's very kind to me, and I arguably am an arsehole.
It depends.
That's true. Don't use
$50 from Rob Thompson. Thank you very much, Rob. That's incredibly kind. And not even going to make me work hard by reading difficult things.
$10 from Ali Ashana Silverbow. Brian, we know you're too scared to defend your position, but don't want to run away and be called a coward again. This is why you're practically begging Jimmy to drop you, you big cowardly coward. There was no stakes to answer the question, especially the way he was blocking it. At a certain point, things would have gotten better back on track for him because you could arguably at that point go, Jimmy spent way too much time on that shit. And he didn't even take advantage of that.
It is so obvious. And I'll tell you, hopefully, maybe nobody's noticed. Maybe I'm not doing the best job of it. I had an epiphany recently. I won. I don't know who these people are. I'm not calling their show to harass them. I'm not calling their show to piss them off. They're calling me to try to piss me off. They're calling me to be obstinate. They're calling me to avoid having a conversation. They're calling me to express their ridiculous, cartoonish, racist nonsense. And you know what they're not doing anymore? They're not calling in to have an honest conversation about where I'm wrong about politics anymore. And they're also generally not calling in to have an honest conversation about where I might be wrong about religion. I won.
Yeah.
Now, for the rest of my life, I'm just going to keep pointing out how much I won. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
I mean, the last formal debate you did that I'm aware of or can remember literally was, can we have this debate about God? And then began with a concession. You win, actually. Let's not even do that debate.
That wasn't it.
Instead, I'd like you to talk about this pet issue of mine that I've prepared and you haven't for. Not that you wouldn't have been fine. It's I mean, literally the same thing on the formal side, not even just the call-in.
That wasn't the last one. But yeah.
Well, it's the last one I was watching.
I had a great debate with an individual. We were going to work together on some of the projects, but he got involved with the Phil Bros and decided to become shitty.
I hate Phil Bro conversations. I hate them. I already ranted to you about it, but Phil Bro conversations aren't real conversations or debates. Do you have the memorized response to this specific philosophy bro thing? If you don't, you lose. Great. We nailed it, guys. And now God exists because you came up with a word problem that's worse than the shit they used to put on the back of cereal boxes.
Matt, I feel you, brother. I'm 62, deconstructing, a veteran, retired pipe fitter. My bones ache and I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Yeah. I'm not a pipe fitter, but, I do stuff with pipes on occasion.
I'm 35 and my bones ache. That blows. Legally Mod says, the average American has a room temperature IQ, does not experience curiosity, and hasn't read a book since high school. Frankly, I don't want voting. I don't know, the highest IQ in the world as documented by his organization and with no backup and no career of accomplishments to suggest that is true, says that God is real and Jesus loves you. You seen that guy?
Well, there are two. There's Christopher Langan, and then there's another guy whose name I can't remember who pulled this shit last year, and I did a video on it.
I just keep seeing this guy on threads as the world's highest IQ holder with a confirmed IQ of 276.
Yes, that's not even possible. So anyway, Mike Jones, when the smartest guy was, it's inspiring philosophy. I did a video on his hypocrisy and ridiculousness. When that highest IQ was arguing for God, Mike was all in favor. And then when he started arguing for Trump, it was like, hey, hang on a second. And I'm like, yeah, you don't get to cherry pick. Once you go ahead and said that the source is good because it said something you find favorably, you don't then get to dismiss it for the same reason.
Did you see yesterday that I think it was Elon, brother, I think it was yesterday, it might have been the day before, basically claimed to have invented Google Maps like 6 years before Google Maps was out?
Was hilarious. That before or after he became the #1 Diablo player and Path of Exile player?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say around the same time. This is me. Lord Ben says, frankly, I just think that my presidency, frankly has been the best in the history of the United States. Frankly, you forgot to fuck yourself, Jimmy Hussein Snow. Frankly, not impressed. You did steal my joke one time. Javon and I give a lot of each other a lot of shit. I one time introduced him as Javon Hussein Bradley. It was in context, it was hilarious.
Joshua says, $5 today. I have to jump in and take advantage of the savings. Thank you. That was part of it. Plus we knew we'd get a bunch with Jimmy on here because one of us is going to piss people off enough for them to comment.
We do have a rep. Joshua Everett says, semi-seriously, though, I vote that we name Arden Queen. She will be fair yet merciless.
Arden
I don't think
is
she'd
queen.
want it.
No,
Why are
I
you
won't be
lobbying?
fair. I will be completely a complete dictator. I will rule by my rules alone.
I'm fine with it because I know I'm in good with the queen.
Yeah.
The rest of you might not like it as much.
I don't look. Arden and I are close enough. My partner and I are close enough. I don't know if I've done this with Matt, but we've had those conversations where it's like, okay, hypothetically though, if you could, and then you talk about things that you can't say online.
Yeah.
And listen, I shouldn't be president.
Yeah. I should, but not without some great changes, because you have to give them, you don't need to give them the unbridled Supreme Court godlike power. But you can't have a lame duck sitting there or nothing gets done.
Joshua Everett says, Robert, we have the destination of where we want to go generally. What we need is a map to get there. We need ideas on what we have to do practically.
When I say I should be, I mean, I would put the right people in place and then I would step the fuck down because I don't want the job. I just want things to be better. $10 from Eric America. Thank you so much. That's very kind. And a brief message.
Regato says, nothing to say. Just wanted to donate BTW. I sucked at fantasy football this year. Well, bummer. Did you not get enough baskets?
Well done. $10 in alleged money from Pyroform42. Hashtag let Jimmy eat.
Indeed.
Let him eat cake.
I wish. Jeez.
Nice.
Rub it in.
Arden made some banana bread the other day. I'm going to eat some more.
What kind of nuts? Walnuts?
No nuts.
No
I don't put nuts
nuts.
in. I don't like nuts in any of my baked goods. Listen, I like nuts. I don't like them in my baked goods.
I like nuts and I cannot lie. Oh, sorry.
I do enjoy nuts in especially banana bread. Can't eat at that either, but if I'm fantasizing about banana bread, it's a warm piece with a light coating of butter, and it probably has walnuts in it, but pecans are pretty good in everything.
Pecans are good in every. I will concede that point.
God is cherished. Jimmy, can chewed gum start time be adjusted so Promise can host once in a while, just like TACIS did for Katie? Taylor is great, but I miss Promise. Promise will be on chewed gum in the future, but no, we won't be moving the time for chewed gum.
If anything, we should move the time for TACIS, but that's something I'm not going to lobby for right now.
Chewed gum, since we're now doing a show after chewed gum, arguably I wouldn't mind moving it back, but we're going to hold it. Savic Hazard says, just want to show my love for your guys and the whole team. Please know that the bingo game is our love letter to your hard work. I've heard there's a bingo game, and that's as much as I know so far, but thank you.
I literally only heard that the other day, but I don't know anything else about it.
I don't know where it's happening. I don't know.
I hope that like the free space is Matt's going to yell.
Well, then it wouldn't be a free space.
No, I mean, you just label it instead of free space. You just put Matt's going to yell and you just mark that off before it starts.
It's guaranteed.
Because you would have only not gotten that one like maybe 3 times.
Because I get intense and loud, a lot of people think they've heard me yell. You don't really know what it sounds like that I'm yelling until one of my animals is taking a piece of steak off of the counter. That's when the real. Just a single, no, but it sounds totally different. Imagine Charlie Day is being tortured.
I don't know who that is.
The only course is to get money out of politics, says Ryder Dragon, which is that's kind of the thing I was saying about Citizens United earlier. Is that possible now? Could you put it back in, or is the path to a reformed America, being a different country, easier than keeping America and trying to reform it from within? But I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I know that I'm too old to fight, and I am a communication arm of whatever this shit is. So I'm picking up arms to defend, sure, but
$5 from Blue Lear. I'm being a good boy and watching the show, so can't think of anything to say except thanks for keeping it real. Well, thanks for contributing and supporting and watching and letting us know you're there. That's more than enough for now.
Never had a bidet says AOC wouldn't have a shot in America, not in this racist, sexist shithole of a country. She would, however, get my vote. Yeah, I really, really hope. I don't know. I just don't want to I don't want to enthusiastically vote for her knowing she's going to. I don't want a symbolic victory this time. I want an actual victory. I don't want to feel good about myself that I voted for AOC if she's going to lose.
Yeah.
Is this you?
Yeah, it's me. $5 from Joshua Everett. Again, thank you so much. Okay, hear me out. Secret underground compulsory neutering programs for 2024 Trump voters.
They do be breeding.
Yeah, but evidently it's gay to have a girlfriend, according to some of them.
That's true. I mean, think about it. You're a guy and you're all into like a girl who like smells nice and looks pretty and likes flowers and wears makeup. You're fucking gay. What the fuck is my phone doing? Somehow a podcast I don't even listen to just started playing on my phone. Siri must have heard a weird command. Robolex Walter says, super curiousus.
I'm going to say Rob Alex.
What did I say?
Robolex.
I like mine better. Super curiousus. Have any of you at the line heard the complete Word of God abridged album by Reduced Shakespeare Company? Much love. Oh, old Billy Shakespeare Company? No. An inside joke.
That was a good way to throw it back.
Not.
Thank you.
Jokes have to be.
Threw it back.
Damn it. Arden just stole my joke. Okay. 669 for Corey Springer. Jimmy, I've heard you talk about woodworking. Do you do any turning on a lathe? Go fuck yourself. Fuck ice.
Funny you should mention that. I have one of the things. This is a little holiday tree that I made out of, I think, oak. I believe this is my hard oak little holiday tree that I turned not too long ago. So I made this on the lathe. Oh, I dropped it.
That's a rather suspicious looking holiday tree. Which holiday is that?
Christmas.
It's Christmas holiday. Okay.
It's because atheists are always trying to take Christmas away and shove shit down our throat. And so this is the fight back. It's a Christmas tree you can shove up your... All right, what's the next one?
I thought maybe it was a Valentine's Day holiday tree.
It does say do not put in body on the bottom.
$5 from Legally Mod. Here's $5 from Matt to read the next 5 super chats as Foghorn Leghorn. Oh, God, can I even do that?
I'll say. Here's $5 for Matt. No, I can't do it.
I've done it before, but it's been so long and I haven't watched it in ages. Let's see what we do. Then the next 5 that are mine. That way we make sure we get at least 10. I will try to do as Foghorn Leghorn. So this one's Jimmy's.
Here's Tony the Silent Man says, here's $10 to add to Meg's. What's the actual fuck? Yeah.
I'll say $5 from Kayla Albertson. The dermatologist I work for recommends Vanicream products for any allergic contact dermatitis. Hope that's helpful. Love everyone on the line. Is that GFYJ? I have no idea what that is. Say, boy, this is hard.
$50 from Misha. A donut hole is the donut's hole, but we must look a little closer. And when we do, what we see is that the donut hole has a hole in its center. It is not a donut hole at all, but a smaller donut with its own hole. And our donut is not a hole at all.
I wonder if that's the hole where the whole milk comes from.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's whole milk. People don't realize it's whole with a W, not an H. This is clearly something that I am saying because this was explained to me earlier this very day, just an hour ago, when I said, where is the whole even from? And they said, wow, that is a dumb question. And now I'm going to act like everybody makes this mistake.
We're going to do too many voices here, but I'll say $20 from Mima Human. Looking for a good home to my mother's over 200 political and historical hardcover book library. Would love to donate to the line if anyone at the line interested. from her library. Man, that was terrible. That's the worst Foghorn Leghorn I've ever done. And I'm bad. I have zero interest in adding more physical books or physical anything to my house right now. I am out of space.
I don't know what political books you're offering me. Like, Mein Kampf is a political book. What are we talking about here? I'm okay. Thank you, though, Mimi.
I don't think I'm going to make it through 5 of these.
In fact, it's the entirety of Donald Trump's political library. Rogerio Alfonso says, "Hello, Matt. You treat people honestly and fairly. I respect that. You're awesome from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil."
$5 from Aliasante. I keep my feathers numbered for just such an occasion. What are your criticisms of the Clinton administration? Oh, fuck. I'll just throw don't ask, don't tell compromise out there right off the bat. And
Crime
stop.
bill. That wasn't great.
And stop there.
And I think a president shouldn't fuck their 21-year-old intern. And in that scenario, the decades that follow shouldn't be dedicated to shaming her, but in fact shaming him as a predator.
And I don't care if a president fucks an intern, if there isn't the problem, if there wasn't the specific problem of power dynamic leading to a consent issue, I wouldn't care. That's the only thing that makes me care.
There are a few jobs out there where I'm like, every relationship has a power dynamic imbalance. There's a few jobs out there where it's kind of like, sorry, if you get to this job, you just don't fuck your subordinates no matter what. You just don't get to. Sorry, you won at life. You're the president or you're the CEO of a multimillionaire company or whatever, and you have to merely date anybody else. And, he's obviously he was cheating, so there's all that on top of it.
Yeah, no, that's why I mentioned the power dynamic and all that stuff related to the job. But generally, we spend too much time worrying about who's fucking who when we're all getting fucked.
Yeah. Let's see if I can do Clinton. Kayla Albertson says, Democrats bare minimum make election day a national holiday. Have multiple days for essential workers. P.S. Try chocolate chips and banana bread.
I can fuck with chocolate chips in my banana bread.
There are chocolate-covered pecans at H-E-B that I've never gotten to try.
The candied pecans from Buc-ee's are...
I've had those.
Phenomenal.
Incredible. Fantastic. I also like their cinnamon almonds that you can get hot. Was this me or you?
It's me. $5 from Spaceball Barian. Jimmy, have you tried the Escape from Tarkov and B-Dubs vehicles mods on 7D2D? They're pretty dope.
I've not tried any mods as I've only just gotten into 7 Days to Die, and we're making a little community server with some people who work here and a few of our friends and shit. So, no, I have not. But it sounds nice. I am only just now starting to not suck, but I'm still not good. $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. I forget the comedian that said this, but they mentioned that American politics needs to be like NASCAR. They have the patches of corporations that are paying them lobbying. They have the patches of corporations that are paying them lobbying. It's an interesting idea. Oh, yeah. That they should be covered in a jumpsuit so you can see. Yeah. I have a feeling I know a couple lobbies who will not want that to happen.
I'll say $5 from the Rider Dragon. We've been voting to not lose for 40 years. See where it's gotten us? Yeah, but here's the problem. You have to vote to not lose.
Mm-hmm.
If you vote to win, you definitely lose. When it gets down to it, you vote for the idealistic candidates during the primaries and everything else, and you vote to win. You vote to get them in a position, and then when it comes down to you're definitely getting one of the two, you choose the better two. They're both going to suck. They're both going to be imperfect. They're both going to get it wrong. But if you have a choice between colon cancer and athlete's foot, you fucking vote for athlete's foot. And you can complain about it after the fact, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
The perfect is the enemy of the good.
Every time there's an election, you still got to go do it, even if you're working on other shit. Thor versus Darwin. Nice Xmas tree. Now Jimmy can feel like an avocado. An avocado. Thanks.
I heard it's avocado.
Free for Jacadoo.
$5 from Jason on YouTube. I don't know if the Raven guy is still here, but I hope you take an RKO through a table, Jimmy. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Love the show. And always fuck ice. I haven't seen Raven in a little while, but I did watch some wrestling content the other day, so my best, Raven. Here we go.
Joshua says, the Jimmy Q Snow Memorial Political Book and Used Porn Magazine Library. I can honestly say in my entire life, because I am only 35, I've maybe seen one porn magazine in person that wasn't in a thrift shop.
I remember finding my first one in the woods behind my house.
Which is very funny. Because it means you found the one that somebody hides where they go out to the woods to jerk off.
Yeah, trust me, that lived in my head for quite a while there. $10 from Black Halo. Hello, Jimmy. Thank you. Thank you, collab with Jovan, for me hearing about you. Love that he was added and got done with Matt's debate with Biblically. Shocked Ty didn't think of the civil rights movement and MLK.
I think he might say he doesn't know who that is.
Yeah, it's funny because on Monday we did this because Monday was MLK Day, and I went on the thing, and Mandisa was basically asking me about what I learned from MLK and the importance and significance of MLK and what we should be teaching. And the point that I had to make was, I don't know enough, because I'm a white kid from rural Missouri. The first Black guy I ever met in person that I can ever recall was basically an exchange student that stayed with us for, I don't know, a night, a weekend, maybe. His name was Demetrius. I remember that because it was, wow, there was a Black guy in our house. And, my family was perfectly sweet and kind, and they hated, racists. They had racists in their family and everything else. But that was it until I got in the Navy. I'm sure I ran into other Black folks, but I didn't know anything about it. And they didn't teach anything. It was, it's MLK Day. That's a Black holiday. That's literally all we knew, or all I knew. And so it wasn't until I got in the Navy and I had a Black Master Chief in the deck department, who basically carried on MLK's legacy to teach folks like me what life is like for other people, what life was like for their ancestors, for their parents, for them, and for their kids. And the importance of MLK's legacy to me is to keep spreading that message, whether it's directly by name. There's some gravitas and some value tied to the name, obviously, but to continue sharing that message so that you end up with more people like me. And I don't mean people who are good people. I'm a good people. I'm a good ally, and blah, blah. You need more people like me. I mean, you need to do something to get people like me who don't have any built-in motivation to care about racism that isn't going to affect us, to teach us how and why this is going to matter to all of us. And so you have to keep telling that story so that you get people like me who wouldn't naturally become an ally because it's not impacting me directly, to try to get us to pay attention, be an ally. And that might be the most you can hope for, is to try to get more people to pay attention. And it turns out some of the people that need to pay attention, fucking Black. Hi, Ty.
Yeah, I would say in isolation, that clip might be. the stuff happened earlier in the show, in case you were just now joining.
Yes. You watch, I'll get canceled for referencing the blank guy.
Never Had a Bidet says, hey, Matt, can you tell Jimmy to go fuck yourself? Thanks.
Nope.
He only likes to do that recreationally, not at work, not on live.
For $5?
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. I'd have done it for free.
Yeah.
$5 from Dirkby. I was a staunch atheist until today. I just discovered the wisdom of Joshua Graham and decided to join the Latter-day Saints. I'm sorry, Jimmy.
There's a new settlement that just opened up. The Joshua Graham is, for people to know, is a character in Fallout New Vegas who is Mormon.
And the final super chat.
Ryder Dragon says, Matt, I don't give a fuck about perfect. I want candidates that answer to the voters, not the donors.
And if you don't have that option, then you still need to vote not to lose. You want to get the ones that are going to do least harm, and hopefully listen more to the voters and less to the donors than the other ones. But yes, I get your point. Well made. $10 from Pyroform. Dirkby's touching story has converted me as well. Anybody else, before we close it out, is anybody else converting to Latter-day Saints because of Joshua Graham?
For the record, I've stopped saying I'm an ex-Mormon. At this point, if they haven't excommunicated me, they must think I speak for the church. So I am an atheist, queer, socialist Mormon.
Sweet. All right. Jimmy, I'm going to let you close this whole thing out because you know what's going on in the line and I'm tired. So what did we learn today?
You can follow the channels if you want to know what shows are coming up. I'm Jimmy Snow. I was born in the dirt. Oh, it doesn't just fade to black here?
No. Arden's going to put up the credits. And then I'm going to say all the other stuff, which is, hey, look at those Patreon producers. If you go to patreon.com/callofline, you can become and get your name in that list and continue supporting us. But if you don't like Patreon or anything else, you can go to linemerch.com. You can like and subscribe and join right here on YouTube. You can tell everybody in the world that they need to tune in and get their friends to call, especially their MAGA Christian fascist friends who don't understand a thing, because it's fun.